call the I'd like to call the council meeting of January 18th, 2019 to order. Councilmember McKinney, would you lead us in a prayer, please? Special intentions, Councilman Brannigan.
Yes, a friend of mine's son, 27 years old, was diagnosed with lymphoma, and he is starting treatment today at MD Anderson. So if you could keep him in your prayers, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Wilmot.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Mike McCarthy, a longtime Kenner coach, passed away recently. Still loved doing what he did, and that's coaching. He coached many, many children, including mine. He will be greatly missed, and may he rest in peace, Coach Mike. I kindly ask for a moment of silence for Mike. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McKinney? Councilman McKinney.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I just want to have a special intention for a resident of Laketown Village, Frances Klein. She passed today, and I know some of the residents normally attend this meeting, and unfortunately, most of them are not going to be there as a result, so keep her in your prayers.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll?
Thank you, Council President. I would like to ask on behalf of the City of Kenner, particularly District 1, for your prayers for her, Miss Leola Burton Hughes, who is the sister of Mr. Arthur Burton, and as we all know from South Kenner, who had one of the first pharmacies in the South Kenner area. We ask for your prayers for Miss Burton Hughes and for her family. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman McKinney?
Yes, so please everyone bow their heads. Lord, thank you for this day and the opportunity to come together to make decisions for our community and work together for the best of Kenner. On this day, please give us direction, fortitude, and grace to deal with anything that may lay ahead. May we seek your guidance and work steadfastly in your name. Lord, please also be with us in the Superdome this Sunday as we watch the Saints play and lead them to victory. Amen.
Councilman Segura, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B 14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Do we have any resolutions, motions, or other items from the floor this evening? Seeing none, we will move on to the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda this evening, we have item 1, approval of minutes to council meeting of January 3rd, 2019. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to Divine Mercy Catholic Church on February 2nd, 2019 and February 9th, 2019 at 4337 Salentini Parkway. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 2134-19, Audubon Elementary School to hold a public gathering on February 13, 2019 from 9:45 a.m. to 11 a.m. for the purpose of a school fun run at Audubon Elementary School, 200 West Loyola Drive. Item 3B is application number 2135-19, Divine Mercy Catholic Church to hold a public gathering on February 9, 2019 from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the purpose of a cook-off and a car show fundraiser at Divine Mercy Catholic Church, 4337 Salentini Parkway. Item 3C is application number 2136-19, the City of Kenner District 1 to hold a public gathering on January 21, 2019 from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the purpose of a Martin Luther King Junior Day celebration at the AP Clay Center, 200 Decatur Street. Item 4 is correspondence reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, a report from Mayor Zahn.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Council Chairman. I have a few things, and I'm going to ask for a little more time on these comments because I'll go through the regular things to bring the council and the people up to date, but we're going to have 2 presentations within those comments if you and the council are okay with that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Real quickly, our Code Enforcement Department did some code sweeps with the help of your office for District 5 and Councilman Carroll's office of District 1. One area was 142 violations this past week, and also another area was 47 violations, a total of 222 violations. Those areas were Clemson, Idaho, East Louisiana, Ole Miss, Tulane, and West Louisiana. Those are the efforts of our code director and also the men and ladies in the Code Enforcement Department that are keeping our city clean. So I know we have a lot of constituents that always come up, particularly from this area in your district and also Councilman Carroll's district, that complain about the consistent violations out there. We are doing our part to do that, and I want to thank our code director, our assistant director of code and planning, and also the men and ladies of that department for what they do. Which leads to my next thing. I think it makes a difference with what we're all doing when you have code out there, you have a police department out there, you have a fire department, a council like we have, an administration like we have, that are doing their part to affect the increase in sales tax. I'm pleased to report, and I think Mr. Morello would be pleased with this, we are up 13% this November from last November in sales tax collections. That is awesome. We are 6% ahead of last year at this time. And I think I told Councilman McKinney just in an agenda meeting before this, we are only halfway through this year, which means that, of course, we went through Thanksgiving and Christmas, but look at the big sales tax holidays that we have coming up. Valentine's, Mardi Gras, Mother's Day, Easter. It might have been a little bit out of order, but those are the things that are going to increase more sales tax for this year. And you all know this, and you all say this too. Every time we cut a ribbon, every time we do a groundbreaking, we talk about this city is moving forward with business. It's taken us a little time to catch up, but now look, this could change next month. I realize that. Hopefully it doesn't. But it looks like the work that this council and this administration are doing is making somewhat of a difference. Don't get too excited with thinking that we're flush with funds, because remember, and some of these new council people may not realize this, you inherited a budget from this administration and a past council. We are a $900,000 increase, but we are $2.3 million still from taking from the general fund from last year. So that's going to go against that 2.3 that we've already taken. But hopefully I'm coming back at budget hearings and saying that we are ahead of that 2.3. I would love to be able to report that. If we keep on this track, I think you're going to see that. Remember, Lamarck Ford has just done a very big project. I believe part of the project is open. There's more parts that are coming. CarMax, right next to the Lamarck Ford, is not even open yet. Granted, those sales tax will only be affected if you live in Kenner, but hopefully a lot of Kenner residents will buy from those 2 dealerships, not to mention our other dealerships throughout the city. I'm talking about the new ones. We have Habitat for Humanity right down the street in Councilman Segura's district that is going to be huge. These are things we have not even opened yet, and we're seeing this influx in increase in sales tax. I'm very excited. You all should be very excited. You all should applaud each other. This administration, not me, but these people that work for me and the administration should be applauding each other, because it's all the departments working with this council, working with this administration, our 2 chiefs, to make these differences. So thank you for your hard work. I appreciate it. The first one I'm going to turn it over to, Council Chairman, is Ms. Barbara Kansas. She's with the Driftwood Civic Association. They're going to have their 50th year parade this coming February. That's very impressive for this organization, this neighborhood. She is the parade captain this year. I look forward to the great job and better job that she will do that we've had in the past in moving Driftwood forward with this parade. With that, I'm going to turn it over to you can turn it over to Ms. Barbara Kansas. Then if you grant me the privilege to come back and talk about some airport issues.
Yes. Ms. Barber?
Thank you very much, Mayor Zahn. Ladies and gentlemen, the Driftwood Civic Association would like to invite you to our 50th anniversary parade, February 16th, 2019. It starts at 1 o'clock. We want all of you to come and celebrate with us. It's been a long time, and we're having a wonderful parade this year. We have a number of floats, dance teams, marching bands, and a lot of people participating. I'd like to thank all of you, the city officials, all of the people who have helped us so much to get this together. And I hope to see all of you, whether you're elected officials or people in the audience. We would love to have you come and join us and celebrate our 50th anniversary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Council Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Kansas. There's been a lot going on, obviously, about the airport. There's been a lot going on about what this council and this administration have done lately with purchases of property. There's been a lot going on with the traffic. There is just a lot going on with the airport. We have done, everyone, I feel, has done their due diligence to make sure that the public is informed. Probably the only thing that we haven't done, Council Chairman, besides talking about a $1 billion 35-gate, million-square-foot facility that's coming to the city of Kenner, the only thing we haven't talked about is the traffic. It is going to be an economic engine for the city of Kenner, that is no doubt, and for the city of New Orleans. Mayor Cantrell has been very supportive of the city of Kenner, working with us to make sure that all these things happen. This economic engine comes with a burden, though. I will be very clear, a burden, and you can quote me, that it is a burden upon the city of Kenner and its residents when it comes to traffic. I appreciate the council's support. I appreciate the legal department's involvement in making sure that we keep our fire department whole and that we keep our fire department where it needs to be, within a certain radius, so that PIAL, when it's rated next year, will not be affected. I appreciate the legal department, Mr. Ed Rapier, stepping up and being the lead counsel on this to make sure that we find a piece of property so that we're not affected in the future with PIAL, that we cannot put it on existing property. I appreciate the work of everyone. My administration has been involved in this too. We'll continue to do this. The problem is that, and I'll quote, some other administrations have said that they put the cart before the horse. If you look back to some media comments, you'll see that. The cart was put before the horse. Those aren't my words knocking anyone. Those are my words agreeing with past administrations that probably the cart was put before the horse. Because the burden of this economic engine will be on our people because of the consistent traffic issues. I want to thank Nikki Nicolosi, our aviation board member, who is present in the audience right now, because he stepped in and was able to be our liaison between my office, representing you all also, working with LaToya Cantrell's office, working with the council over there, working with his colleagues on his board to make sure that the things that had not been done while the cart was being put before the horse, that he's repairing those issues. But the things that he can't repair and the things that I can't repair and you can't repair or the fire chief can't repair is the things that we have to deal with a 2012 traffic count study that was done by the airport. And I'm not knocking the airport. Airport's our friends. We have a very good working relationship with Mr. Kevin DeLeo. We have a very good working relationship with Nikki Nicolosi's colleagues. But the problem is that when you use 2012 counts, it will affect District 5, District 1, and every elected official that sits here and represents the people of Kenner that will have that burden. So what I did was I made sure that we had a 2018, and that was recent up until January 1st, obviously. We did a 2018 traffic count. We did a 2018 traffic count to make sure, not to show anybody was wrong, to make sure that we're doing the right thing, to prove why that fire station has to be moved immediately to increase lanes in that median. So this is going to show you what life will be like when I turn it over to Mr. Carmelo with ITS. This will show you what life will be like with the fire station gone. You're going to be shocked because it's still not utopia. It's still not great news. Picture this, when you look at this, and the people of Kenner look at this, picture what this would have been like with the fire station sitting there because we can't, or we refused to do what we were supposed to do. Find that piece of property, move that fire station, keep the people's rating in place where it needs to be. Keep that in mind, please. And most of you all have, and I appreciate that support. I appreciate the support of the legal department because they kept that in mind when they were negotiating. I appreciate the support of the administration and our aviation board member, and the aviation board, and LaToya Cantrell and her council. I'm going to turn it over. We're going to come back throughout this. It's going to be extended mayor comments, Council Chairman, and I appreciate your, giving us the ability to do this. But I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carmelo. Our CAA is going to have comments. Ed Rapier from our legal department is going to have comments. Heather Hilliard may have some comments, and also, obviously, our fire chief will have comments. So grant us the privilege to have a delayed mayor comments. I believe they had everything ready to go. It looks like it's ready to go again. I was getting a little concerned there. But I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Carmelo with ITS. He is going to do a presentation on traffic counts. Like I said, we're going to go through a few people to explain what I guess has not been clear in some instances on this issue. Thank you, Council Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Carmelo?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Carmelo Gutierrez. I'm proud to say that I live in Canada. I've been in Canada for 40 years, so I call it home. I own a little small company called ITS Regional. We entered into the contract with the city of Canada to try to see what's going on with the traffic that's going to be generated by the airport. And like Mr. Mayor said, when the airport started in 2012, they needed to do a study to see the projection of the traffic up to 2018, which is going to be open. So they did some traffic count in 2012, and they projected to 2018, which is okay for standards on traffic. You need to project it to come out to a certain year. But those are projections. So what we did in 2018, when the school came back, we did actual counts. And the study included 10 intersections. Intersection along Loyola, and intersection along Veterans, Bainbridge and the Airport Road, and along Loyola, I-10, and the two I-10 and the Veterans and Loyola intersection. When we did the counts that they did on 2012 compared to the actual 2018 projection, our counts, they did a good, they did a kind of decent estimate. But our counts, when we did it, they're about 20% higher. Just normal counts that we did compared to what they projected. But that's only the existing count. Can you click one more? And we did existing counts on all the intersections of Veterans, and some of the big ones is like, to take into account is the people coming from New Orleans, turning into Loyola, going southbound. Right now it's about 400 people making a left turn. But can you click some more? This is the AM or the PM? That's good. This is like here, I mean, it can hardly hard to see, but these are the projections that the airport is estimating additional traffic is going to be when the airport opens. The big numbers are coming from New Orleans. They estimate to be about 700 more cars making a left turn coming from New Orleans, making a left turn to go to south, to go to airport. That's 700, we got about 400 right now. We talk about 1,100 cars making a left turn in the PM peak. That's gonna be huge. That's one of the big movement. And they're projecting about 1,200 cars coming from the airport, getting into Loyola to go east to New Orleans. Those are big numbers. But of course, there are going to be some improvements, and those improvements they're going to help. But they're not going to help to the and we did some analysis, and we can go through analysis, but can you click some more? And we all know what the improvement is going to be, but the improvement they're going to be, they still are failing to really solve the problem that's going to be when the airport's open. So there's going to be some congestion. There's no doubt about it right now on Loyola and I-10. But, you know, improvements are coming, and we all know it's going to be the flyovers. When it's going to be that? When they're going to be a few years from now, but they're coming. So there's going to be some help along on Loyola. No, right now with the conditions they're doing it, but the future, you know, 5, 7 years, they're going to improve, and everybody knows that. But we probably have to suffer for a few years. Along veterans, there's going to be some problem also at Bainbridge, because a lot of people are coming from the airport, coming to veterans and using Bainbridge. So we're suggesting, according to the study, to improve veterans also, from basically from Dawson Street all the way to Williams to add an extra lane. They make it 3 lanes in each direction, eastbound, westbound, and make some improvements on Bainbridge, because Bainbridge is going to be used a lot. It's going to increase a lot of traffic coming from the airport, going to use the back door and coming out to go east. It's going to be heavy. So our study shows that that's going to deteriorate with the traffic coming from the airport. So we have some improvements. We recommended those improvements. How we go about to doing it, well, I don't know. But this is all, it's going to create some problem. But we're going to try to, you know, what we did after all those numbers and the improvements coming up, we created a vision simulation. And we tried to create what the traffic is going to look like the day the airport is going to open, including the proposed improvements. So can we click on the... We wanted to show you, but it seems like it's not working right now. But the conclusion is that Beta is going to be, Loyola is going to be a little trouble right now with the new traffic. But like I said, improvements are coming. It's going to get better eventually when the flyovers get built. Veterans need to be improved also to 3 lanes. We're suggesting from Loyola to Dawson Street, with some improvements on Bainbridge and some improvements on the airport road, because a lot of people coming from the airport making a left turn to go westbound. I wish I could show you the video, but I think it's not working right now, so sorry. Any question?
Sorry. Mr. President, if I may. Mr. Gutierrez, thank you so very much. If you don't mind sticking around, we may have some questions after, but right now this is a presentation, so the mayor's going to need to move on. Thank you so much. So that's Carmelo Gutierrez. We call him Mr. Carmelo because that's his first name, but he's actually Carmelo Gutierrez from ITS, very, very accomplished traffic engineer. So the long-term fix is obviously the flyover. It's 5 to 10 years away. It will be necessary for DOTD to take down the hotel that's there at the corner, as well as a portion of the police parking lot, headquarters lot, and a portion of the Susan Park Recreational Complex to allow for the on-ramp. Right now, we only have seen conceptuals. They call it option I. If any of you have been, as members of the public may have been also, there we go, alternative I. That is the proposed flyover with the on-ramps, and you can see the one that's going east to the bottom right, that it is actually cutting into our property. It's going to cut off the back access road that we use to come into the backside of the police headquarters, and it's going to end up taking up some property. That being said, it will fix this traffic problem when it gets here, but it is 5 to 10 years away. So it's going to be important for us to come up with some ground level improvements in the meantime. We're not going to be able to fix it. We're not going to be able to make it perfect, but we need to do absolutely positively everything we can to improve it. So this time I'm going to turn this over to Tom Schreiner, the Deputy CAO of Public Works and Capital Projects, and he's going to address the ground level improvements that have been made so far and the planned ground level improvements both at the fire station site and on veterans that we're going to be implementing in order for us to be able to go forward. No.
I think most of you are aware of this. This project's been going on a long time. We've reported before on its progress. Just to recap, this project was, we opened the bids on September 13th of 2017. Following review of the bids, we were able to issue a notice to proceed in December of the same year. Construction got started underway and has been on schedule ever since. The original estimate, the completion date was supposed to be next month, but we are now in negotiations with the contractor to add these additional lanes that y'all have heard about. February was the new completion date. Now we're looking at May. The idea now is to have all this work completed before the opening of the new terminal. Okay. The project essentially provides 2 lanes into and out of the airport property. Since then, we had 1 change order already. It's added turning lanes, and that work is essentially complete between the airport property and veterans. What it does, it provides more lanes to get through the intersection and more turning lanes. Once the fire station is removed, then we'll be able to continue those lanes through the intersection and all the way to the interstate. Again, once we're in negotiations with the contractor right now to include that work, that change order will include the additional lanes as well as the demolition of the station. That's all scheduled to be complete by May of this year.
Thank you, Tom. At this point, to accomplish those ground level improvements, the DOTD had to take our fire station. And DOTD uses federal highway funds, so they can only pay for what they call a functional equivalent replacement. And that's not just what we would think it is, that's actually functional equivalent. So we were restricted to a 1-story structure. Some prior plans had been to place a 2-story structure on another piece of property we own. DOTD would not pay for a 2-story structure. So basically, that locked out some of the spots that we had looked at. I am going to ask Assistant Director of Emergency Management, Heather Hilliard, and the Fire Chief to address the search for property and the ultimate selection of location. So this is Heather Hilliard. And I ask the Chief to step up to be available as well.
Coming from the back. Thank you very much. So I wanted to start with this first, that we looked at all of the call volume for the past 3 years, like you do in an audit for anything. So we pulled up all structure fires, as well as the, you can't hear me as well? Okay. All the structure fires, as well as all of the medical calls. Structure fires currently consider 9% of all call volume, and EMS calls of any sort are 46% call volume. So we looked at the distribution of calls, and then what we considered was the red outline, which you can see is the current response area of the old Station 38. So we needed to stay within that area and consider any available properties, which if you look at this, it's this on the right-hand side of this slide, we took all the properties that were available in the city of Kenner off of the audit list. I'm sorry, what is it called, Lee? The adjudication list. And I drove around the entire city of Kenner and assisted by some of the supervisors in the fire department, literally block by block. And I called people that I saw properties that were suitable for the fire trucks. It would meet our functional equivalents, and fire trucks are longer. We knew that we had a new ladder truck coming to make sure we met that. We were asked in a group meeting, well, what's the square footage that you need? It's not about square footage. I can get a Honda in a very skinny lane, but I can't get a 48-foot ladder truck to do a 3-point turn. So it's not how much square footage of a footprint you need. It's really based on what can you do in that footprint with our multiple equipment. So if you go to the next one, please. So what we did was after I went around, we looked in the area for properties. I called the Greek Orthodox Catholic Church, who did not have property for sale but has a beautiful piece of property on Veterans, started talking to their leadership, and they realized they could get more money by selling it commercially, and 2 weeks later they sold it. I then called a woman in Seattle because she had a piece of property that had been out of business for at least 3 to 4 years, and it was in an area that was at a corner, so we could make the turns. We got that extra room for the fire truck to make the turn into the fire station. That property also did not work out, and the request for that was actually to pay more than what the legal department ended up negotiating for a nearly 2-acre piece of property. Each one of these that has a consideration, and it's tiny, but you can see little firehouses on properties where we either looked at individual pieces of land or pieces side by side, where we wouldn't be evicting people from their homes in order to get the square footage that we needed. On the first one on the left, you'll see that would be the church's property. You reduce, and you do no longer cover University City. You take away most of Lincoln Manor, and you reduce the coverage to the north, so you leave more people uncovered if we were to go to that property. The next one on the right, there were several properties on Veterans, one near Bessemer, the other one near 3 blocks down from that. The one property, it actually had a fire hydrant in the middle and major power poles. That was not really suitable because it was also the bus lane, and the bus stopped right there. It was a bit skinny, so not as suitable. But in that property, you'll also see you lose entire University City, as well as everything to the north because we were moving so far east. The one on Bessemer actually sold to somebody else. So as we're looking and trying to do this rapidly, and I'm literally going door to door, property is being sold because people know the airport's coming, and prices were starting to go up. The last one at the bottom is actually where we picked. It's only 3 blocks away, so that the structure fire calls and the EMS calls in that call volume from the first slide were covered in the most similar manner, and we actually expanded coverage slightly more to the north to get up to the bottom of that school, as well as the hospital. So we expanded the coverage without losing anything from the people that are along Veterans or in those neighborhoods there by Susan Park. So this was the best piece of property, looking at more than 2,250 PIAL questions on 14 apparatus. Now we have 15 with the ladder truck. So everything that we go through and look, we consider went into effect of where are these properties available. Next slide, please. So this is the one where we ended up selecting, and you can see that the coverage is blue. It goes 4 blocks more to the north, comes along over towards Grand Lake where the canal is. It still covers the bottom areas just the same, with the requirements of quickness of response time, so that we're keeping people's safety in mind, keeping all the requirements in mind for them to do their jobs, and not getting them bound up by traffic. But there were over 100 properties reviewed. I saw, like I said, every single block I drove or was driven with the map, circling places that I went to the tax assessor's office, contacted the owners, went through the process. So it was either me driving or somebody driving me so that I could go through every single property, even if there were 2 or 3 side by side that were vacant, trying to see what would be the best option for Kenner and its residents. Chief, next slide, please.
Right, so before I make a recommendation to this administration on where the fire station should be located, had several conversations. Conversations with the administration, several conversations with Mr. Rapier and the legal team, several conversations with Ms. Hilliard and the EOC. We had several conversations with the rating. Before I can make any type of recommendation, I want as much information as I can. Going through that entire process, this property number one, serves the citizens better, and it serves the fire department better. We can reach more citizens. We can respond to more citizens on this property. We look at every property that's available. We went through, like Ms. Hilliard said, we looked through over 100 properties. And what was available and what we thought reached the most citizens, this would be the property that we found the most legit as far as, what the mission of the fire department is. And that's, response time and service. We want to give the citizens the best service that we can, and we feel that's how this was my recommendation for this type of property.
Okay, Chief, thank you very much. Thank you, Chief. Am I on? There you go. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. So, as you can see, after literally considering more than 100 properties, that wasn't just like an exaggeration, they're actually more than 100 properties, the fire chief and the emergency management department recommended to administration this particular site. Administration instructed the legal department to attempt negotiations for the property, which, as you will hear, if you've not already heard, was a bit challenging since this property was actually not for sale. I'm going to ask Deputy City Attorney Ed Rapier to address the process, both in negotiating with DOTD to pay for the fire station and with the seller of the property to sell us this piece of property.
Good morning. This has been a long, drawn-out, and complicated process, which actually started back in September of 2017 when DOTD told Kenner that we had to move out of Fire Station 38 so that they could widen Loyola Avenue, Loyola Drive. And it started with the DOTD saying, you know what, Kenner, you don't own Loyola Drive between Veterans Highway and the interstate. And we said, that's kind of funny. Here's the paperwork that shows what we do. And it took a while, and it got to the point that the DOTD told Kenner, we still don't think you own the fire station or the property, and we are going to probably expropriate it from you, and we don't know who we're going to pay. So they forced us to file suit in state court to quiet title to a piece of property that we own. That took a little while, and it occurred in March, I think is the exact date of the judgment, of 2018. So between September and March of 2018, we're fighting with DOTD over the title to the property. At the same time, we're also fighting with DOTD, and literally it was a fight over what the value of a functional equivalent would be and what they would pay us. Kenner's leverage in the fight was the fact that we were still in the fire station. So once we had the title issue resolved, we continued a two-prong approach, all driven by DOTD, which was to the cost of the fire station design and the location of the fire station. And so we looked, as you heard, we looked at a whole lot of different locations. The site next to the police department was looked at, and for a number of reasons, it was determined that it could not go there. And you heard the fire chief and Ms. Hilliard explain the number of factors that they looked at and the number of places that they looked at. One of the first places that we got an appraisal on, and we were very interested in looking at, was what is called the Crystal Company location, which is now where I think it's Daylight Donuts is located. At that time, we were still looking at a two-story fire station. We approached the owner of that piece of property. They were asking $1.25 million for that 22,000 square foot piece of property. It would have barely worked if we were allowed to build a two-story fire station. The DOTD kibotzed that by saying, we will not give you a functional equivalent in a two-story fire station. We will only pay for a one-story fire station. So that location went away. Shortly after that, we heard about the site, or we saw the site because it had a for lease sign on the property that we ended up acquiring. It is a 64,000 square feet piece of property located in between Duke and Clemson Street, a block off of Loyola. When we first approached the owner, he said, I'm not interested in selling. It took several phone calls and a couple of meetings and the threat of expropriation to even get him to discuss it with us. Now, again, understand that the DOTD is starting to narrow our ability to pick a location because they have limited us to a one-story fire station. So Again, back to the distances, and as Ms. Hilliard said, you need a lot of, it's not so much the square footprint, but it's the ability to move the apparatuses. So, after all of everything that was put in here, where we could be, that turned out to be about the only spot that was available in the area that the fire chief and Ms. Hilliard said we could be. The only other option would have been to start looking at active businesses and active dwellings where people were living, and then expropriate somebody's private houses or businesses. And I don't think the council wanted to kick anybody out of a house or close a business. So appraisals were obtained. We got ours in, I think it was in August or July. Our appraisal came back at $910,000. The owner went out and got his own appraisal. Now, the owner's appraisal, as some people have complained, contains what is known as a hypothetical condition. It is an assumption. It is done in appraisals at all times. It can be, let's put it that way. The owner's appraisal came back showing a range in values from a very worst case scenario for the owner of $1.6 million to a high best case scenario of $2.2 million with a median value of $1.9 million. Because of the disputed amount, and because that was about the only site we could get into without expropriating people's houses or their active business, we entered into discussions to see if we could come up with a negotiated sale. And at the same time, we were having ongoing discussions, and I'll use that term, with the DOTD to come up with an agreement for our functional equivalent, functional equivalent fire station, which would cover the cost of building it, plus the cost of acquiring the land. Ultimately, after much discussion with the owner, we ended up at a negotiated sale price of $1.5 million. Now, let's back up a minute and let's talk about the expropriation process, because it has been said to me by multiple people, well, why didn't you just plop down your $910,000 appraisal and say, see you later, I'm taking your property? It's not how expropriation works. City of Kenner does not have what is called quick take. We have to go through an ordinary expropriation process, which is an ordinary lawsuit. Takes time. And so we would end up going through court. We would say, we need this piece of property for this governmental purpose. Here's our appraisal. Let's go forward. The person we're expropriating the piece of property from would have the ability to be in court and say, hey, they may need that piece of property, but here's my appraisal that says what it's worth. And it is a 6-month to a year process. It is not quick. I can tell you from experience working as a contract attorney for the City of Kenner and working as a deputy parish attorney for the parish of Jefferson Parish, courts and juries in particular, because you can get a jury in an expropriation process, do not like governments taking property. And in the majority of the cases, they will normally accept, unless you can prove some very extraneous issues, they will normally either accept the person whose property is being taken appraisal, or they will split the baby. It's what I have seen in my experience. So we negotiated a sale or a purchase for $1.5 million, all subject to council approval. Now, while we were negotiating a sale, we negotiated the sale price, as I said, for two issues, for all which dealt with timing. First, the DOTD was pressuring us to give them a location and what the cost was going to be. And secondly, that was our leverage where the fire station, because we were still in the fire station, that gave us the ability to say, we're not, on our end, the functional equivalent, we need this amount of money. And then thirdly, the issue for the negotiating was to avoid the potential downside of a judgment in an expropriation, which could have, in a worst case scenario, been the $2.2 million valuation in the seller's appraisal. Now, notifications. You can see a timeline up on the board. The proposed purchase was discussed with the council members on at least 3 different times. First in October at agenda meetings, giving you a notice that it was going to appear for first reading in November. Second, at the first reading agenda meeting, so that was before the November 1st council meeting. And then it was discussed again on November 16th, where we gave you pretty much the same information that I've just laid out, that there were these appraisals, and we ended up negotiating to a point that really is a split the baby between the $1.9 million valuation and our $910,000 valuation. On November 16th, this council passed the authorization ordinance authorizing us to sell the property, to purchase the property for $1.5 million and authorize the mayor to sign all documents necessary to go to close. We did not close until after the first of the year for tax reasons for the seller. He did not want to take for tax reasons, did not want to close in the 2018. We ended up closing, I think it was on January 4th. Now, at the same time, we were negotiating. We were in negotiations with the DOTD for our functional equivalent. On December 21st, you all approved the intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Transportation, where the parties agreed that we have not come to an agreement on the full and final amount that the DOTD is going to pay us, but in that agreement they are going to pay us $3.4 million, and we should be receiving those funds before the end of this month. And again, just to kind of quickly wrap this up, comments have been made that we are overpaying, that we should have forced the seller to sell at our appraisal at $910,000. Expropriations don't work that way. The city doesn't have the ability to say, get out of your house or get off your property. We're going to pay you my appraisal value. And we were moving quickly to keep up and to give DOTD numbers so that we could get our functional equivalent monies. One last thing, there are still 2 agreements that we're working with the DOTD, and I am confident to tell you that by the time everything is done and said and closed, these 2 agreements, the city of Kenner will be made 100% whole, and no funds of the city of Kenner will be expended to pay for the construction of the new fire station or to pay for the purchase of this building.
Thank you, Mr. Rapier. So as you can see, we had to move out in a hurry. The men and the equipment from the station have been moved to other locations, which leads to a coverage problem for us right now. We actually have a coverage problem. There's some money in the DOTD funding for rental of a temporary location, but the build-out in a temporary location will eat into the funds we need to build the new station. So our current plan is to build the apparatus bay first and temporarily house the men in the apparatus bay while the station is being constructed. The good news is that the state granted us authority to use a process called CMAR, which will dramatically speed up our construction. I'm going to ask digital engineering to come up and explain the CMAR process, as well as provide the timeline for the firehouse construction.
Members of the council, thank you for having me today. My name is Frank Lang. I'm with Digital Engineering. Here to give you a very brief synopsis on what CMAR is. Your typical public works project is basically called a design bid build, where it is first designed by a design consultant, then it's publicly bid, and then it is built by a contractor by accepting the lowest responsive bid. How CMAR is different is that the city will first procure or select a design consultant, and he will start designing the plans for the fire station. But at about the 30% design stage, the city will also select what's called a construction manager. And what that person is, or what that entity is normally a contractor. And the city will bring them on as basically like a paid advisor. He's paid a fee to help during the design process. So at 30% plans, or before 30% plans are completed, the city will select a construction manager, and that construction manager is selected on a qualifications base, not on low bid like your traditional design bid build. And so at 30% or before 30%, the construction manager comes in, he looks at the plans, and he gives a cost estimate. And the city's design consultant also provides a cost estimate. And most of the time, they're going to be, you know, not far apart, but they won't be the same. And then, so the design continues along, and as the design continues, the construction manager works in association with the design consultant also, looking for ways to, looking for ideas on making the station, I don't want to say cheaper, but more cost-effective, looking for ways to reduce construction time. And so it's a collaboration, basically, between this contractor and the design consultant. And so at 60%, cost estimate is given, and at 90%, a cost estimate is also given between the design consultant and the construction manager, with the thinking that, you know, eventually the costs are going to come pretty close together. And at the 100% plans, the construction manager or the quote-unquote contractor will give what's called a guaranteed maximum price. And hopefully, with the thinking that the guaranteed maximum price is going to be close to the design consultant's cost, which is also going to be in line with the budget for the project. And if those are all in line, the city can then sign a construction contract with the construction manager, and then construction can proceed. So what it basically does is you can select, the city has a way of not selecting, but procuring a contractor based on qualifications versus lowest bid, because when you do design bid build, you don't know what contractor you're going to get. You're just going to get the lowest price, and you're going to get whatever contractor you get. So what happens is sometimes you'll have change orders. With the guaranteed maximum price, I'm not going to say change orders won't happen, but they have to be very extenuating circumstances for these change orders, being unforeseen conditions like within the site. So what you do is you reduce design, and you can also possibly reduce construction time by working with the contractors and finding out ways to build the fire station. So that, in a nutshell, is a very quick summary of how construction management at risk works.
Also, Digital provided the plans that we submitted to DOTD for the purpose of receiving funding. Can you describe for us the design of the new fire station?
Yeah, and you can see the design, which is on the screens there. So on the right side, you will have the bays for the fire trucks, which are 2 large fire trucks, and then next to that you'll have the gear grid locker room, that's where the firemen keep their jackets, their helmets, and their air tanks and all. So there'll be a room for that, and then there'll be a bathroom in that area also, and then there'll be some storage. And then that wall separating we call that the apparatus room, from the living quarters area or the living area is separated by the CMU wall. So what we're envisioning is a contractor coming in, and then again, this is where working with a contractor using the CMAR process is advantageous. We're envisioning you would still construct a slab all at once. You would get the building, the metal frame for the building erected, and then you would erect, if not all or portion of the roof and the exterior siding or the material, and then you can close in the apparatus room. And then the thinking is that then the firemen can come in from their temporary location to this new location and be housed at the new station at the new location. And then as they're living there, then the contractor can come in and finish out the actual living quarters area. So that is the thinking behind the fire station. The new fire station is approximately 8,300 square feet. In the living quarters, we have living quarters for 10 personnel. But in addition to that, the existing station right now also is a training area. So there is, this new fire station is going to have a kitchen, and it's also going to have a day room. That's where the firemen, that's where they hang out. I don't say hang out, but they hang out and watch TV. But that room is big enough also to allow for the training. We've made it big enough so that they can set up tables and actually make it as a classroom. And the site is large enough also to to house all the vehicles and all the equipment that come during training also. So that was taken into account when when the site was chosen also.
Thank you. Mayor.
Council Chairman, thank you. I believe the comments are finally over. I just want to do a few little closing comments, if you don't mind. I thank y'all for this opportunity. Obviously, some things needed to be cleared up. We will continue to keep this council, as always, updated on airport construction, roadway construction, and of course, the fire station construction. All these things go with what we talked about today. We will make it through this burden that we have inherited. Kenner had no choice, and they still don't have any choice, but to move forward with this process. I want everyone to realize, and I know the council realizes this, but my message to the public, and I've spoken to most of you all about this is a $5 million gift to the city of Kenner when you look at it. It is $5 million the city of Kenner, close to it, maybe a little bit over, we never know, that the city of Kenner is receiving from the DOTD and also the federal government. We should be embracing, and I know you all are, I'm not saying you, but some others, everyone needs to embrace this $5 million project, a brand new fire station that we are receiving in the city of Kenner. Something for a building, and I don't want to go too far because I don't want them to change their mind, but a building that we did not have already. We did not have that type of a building. They're going to replace our building without a cost to the local sales tax or tax dollars of the city of Kenner residents. Of course, every tax dollar, federal and state, is a tax dollar from our Kenner residents also. But what I'm talking about, it's not out of our 2.1 that we had to go into last year. Not out of our immediate city of Kenner, like I talked about earlier, not out of our immediate city of Kenner taxes. I'm going to ask us all to continue to work as one. We've been doing that. This is what we need to do to get through this. Again, I want to express thanks so that nobody walks away from here or looks at this video tonight or tomorrow and says, you attacked the aviation board or the airport. I want to thank the aviation board / the airport for their support. They have been fantastic. I want to thank those two entities. I want to thank Mayor Cantrell and her city council / the city of New Orleans for their continued support. Those are the types of things that we are appreciative of, and I know you all are also. Thank you for being supportive of Kenner. This is not to, be a crepe hanger and, tell you all the gloom and doom. I'm explaining what the issues were, but yet tomorrow is bright. So Kenner's future will be bright. Thank you, Council Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk? Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
I'll explain it. Oh, yes.
In the presentation on the traffic study, I had unfortunate concerns that came with maybe the time to present them now. In that, as you said, we're working very well with Mayor Cantrell, Kevin Doley, the relatively new aviation director. This project was started under a different mayor's administration, a different mayor, and a different aviation director that perhaps we may or may not, we were not here at that time to know what the arrangements were. But after hearing the traffic study that was done in 2012 to determine traffic in 2019, when it's complete, has a deficit or apparently not true numbers, it brings to mind a volume of phone calls that I've been receiving from Kenner 2 residents relative to noise from airplanes. And with that, in doing some checking, as well as these residents who contact the aviation board directly, it's become apparent that that aviation administration, mayor's administration, never did any noise studies to determine what increase in noise would be affecting the city of Kenner residents upon the completion of this airport. This is the big thing that we know they envision with this airport is more air traffic. We want more air traffic. That's more travelers to our region, more sales tax obviously coming to us through the airport. But with that is going to be an
increase in noise traffic that they, in my district, are telling me they're experiencing right now. Rattling of houses at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning when a FedEx plane takes off. The number of flights throughout the day has increased already, and it's going to increase even more upon the completion. So whereas traffic is going to be clearly visible, noise is going to be increasingly heard. And it concerns me that we don't have a proper noise study also to determine what to expect from this opening of this airport and the increase in flights that will be coming in and out of it on a continual from daylight to dusk and even later timeline, and probably even overnight more so now. We generally know after a certain time at night to early morning there are not that many flights. But with the marketing that they're doing, it appears that flights are going to be increasing 24 hours a day now. And it does concern me after hearing from a resident that when they spoke to the administration of the airport, that there was no noise study done to project what sort of noise levels would come out of the increase of flights. So I just think it's worthwhile to note that whereas we do always have and have expected traffic, we're going to see a big noise problem too. Thank you.
And I totally agree. We will, there's something there. We have to go back and look at it. If we have not updated that, I'll get back with you, and I'll give you an update and give this council an update on that, because it is a valid question. It affects 2, but, you know, we know that it affects 3 also, because that's most of that path. So I appreciate Councilman.
Thank you, Councilman. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. That will conclude the consent agenda this evening, today.
Motion by Councilmember Brennan, seconded by Councilmember Carroll. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. We have none. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 12,462, an ordinance amending section 15-23 of the Kenner Code of Ordinances of the City of Kenner entitled Specific Traffic Control Signs Established by adding thereto no truck route signs on Driftwood Boulevard at its intersection with West Esplanade Avenue and Driftwood Boulevard at its intersection with Williams Boulevard, denoting Driftwood Boulevard as a no truck route.
Councilman Hayes, you have the floor.
I have a motion by Councilmember Hayes, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan. You can have the floor now, Mr. Hayes.
Mr. President, this came about through several complaints, primarily Walmart trucks coming off of West Esplanade and coming off of Williams into Driftwood. One person actually had an accident, tore the top of the truck on Emile Street, and the tree was damaged, and the person said, "This is what my GPS told me to do." So you can imagine, getting off of West Esplanade on Emile Street is not what we want a Walmart truck to do. Everything involved there is not in code.
Thanks, man.
So again, this was a complaint, reacting about a complaint, and request the approval of this.
Thank you. Mr. Almarella? Please
Al
state your
Morella,
name.
4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 47 years. First of all, Councilman Hayes, I want to say I share the sentiments with the people in Driftwood, because we got the same problem in University City. As a matter of fact, a couple of months ago, I requested no truck route signs at East Loyola and Joe Yanni and Vintage in East Loyola, because those trucks with that construction on Sal and Tinley Boulevard was taking shortcuts through University City. I don't see them signs. Now, I think every neighborhood in this city should be a priority for issues like this, every neighborhood. But let me remind this administration and this council, The 5th District is the largest district in the city of Kenner, and University City is the largest subdivision in the largest district. So I agree with Driftwood with them signs. That's the same problem that we have in University City. Now, give them signs, but I expect to see those signs that I requested several months ago put in the location I requested them to be put in. No ifs, ands, buts about it. Let's put them signs up. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morella. Seeing no other comments, motion by Councilmember Hayes, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan. Council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. Item 13A is a resolution temporarily suspending Council Rule Number 7 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of March 7th to March 14th and rescheduling the Kenner City Council meeting of March 22nd to the March 29th.
Motion by Councilmember Brennan, seconded by Councilmember Wilmot. This is, Mardi Gras is March 5th, so this is simply moving the meeting not from that Thursday following Mardi Gras, but moving it forward or to the next week, and that will adjust the last meeting of the month as well. And again, it's just because people are out of town and it would conflict with Mardi Gras week. Seeing no comments, council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 12,474, an ordinance ratifying a purchase of 23 essentials of firefighting 6th edition books, 23 hazardous materials 5th edition books, 23 essentials of firefighting 6th edition workbooks, and 23 pumping and aerial apparatus driver books in the amount of $5,233.65 for the Kenner Fire Department.
Motion by Councilmember Segura, seconded by Councilmember Brannigan. Seeing no discussion, council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 12,475, an ordinance ratifying the purchase of 880 CMS 100 NET 5M WWG 100 bulb LED warm white wide angle net lights, 4 foot by 6 foot green wire, 120 volt from 1000bulbs.com with the lowest responsive quote in the amount of $18,409.60 for the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Motion by Councilmember McKinney, seconded by Councilmember Segura. Seeing no discussion, council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15C is a resolution approving change order number 1 to the agreement with Crown Architectural Metal Company, LLC, dated November 5th, 2018, to re-roof the Office of Motor Vehicles, increasing the agreement amount by $3,588 for the Department of General Services.
Motion by Councilmember Carroll, seconded by Councilman Wilmot. Councilman Segura, you have the floor.
Quick comment, in case no one has seen the press releases, but this does now reopen the DMV. It is open for business on Williams, so please go back there and take care of your business. You don't have to travel anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Seeing no other discussion, council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 15D is a resolution approving amendment number 2 to the engineering agreement with GEC Incorporated dated October 21st, 2014 regarding Power Boulevard median improvements, West Esplanade Avenue to Vintage Drive, to increase the agreement amount by $162,147.76 for the Department of Public Works.
Motion by Councilmember Hayes, seconded by Councilmember McKinney. Councilman Wilmot, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Mr. Schreiner if you can touch on this.
Sure, I'd be glad to. This amendment does, as you said, and has already been said, is increases the contract amount by $162,000. And what it includes is during the preliminary phase of the project, it was, we looked at the location of the pedestrian bridge over the canal, and we looked at several different locations, and it was finally decided we needed to move the bridge further over to the east. So now it's up to the next intersection, and that the residents also were consulted on that, and that was the agreeable location. So in order to accommodate that, we need to do more survey. We have to prepare additional plans. And during that time, there's a couple other things that happened too. The DOTD said that they needed a glare analysis on the portion of the project on Power Boulevard. We have some low-level lights, and they require us to do what's called a glare analysis to make sure that doesn't interfere with the traffic. So that's also included in this request. And there are a lot of other little miscellaneous changes that have happened to the project during this time.
So that accounts for the $162,000 increase?
Yes, the additional surveys in there, the glare analysis is in there, as well as coupled with their services, the GEC people as well.
And that's because it's being moved, the bridge.
Yes.
The bridge. And you find that this amount seems to be adequate?
Yes, we had several meetings with them, and this was a negotiated amount.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. That's all.
Thank you. Seeing no other discussion, council members, please vote.
Motion passes 7-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance authorizing the utilization of state contract number 4400016149 to purchase various types of ammunition from Barney's Incorporated, Barney's Police Supplies, on an as-needed basis not to exceed $35,000 per year for the Kenner Police Department. Item 16B is an ordinance ratifying the lease of a postal meter and related equipment / accessories for Building D, 1610 Reverend Richard Wilson Drive. Item 16C is an ordinance approving an agreement with Digital Engineering and Imaging Incorporated to provide engineering services associated with the Loyola Drive and I-10 interchange connection to the new north terminal of the New Orleans International Airport in an amount not to exceed $153,000 for the Department of Public Works. Item 16D is an ordinance approving an amendment to the agreement with Tyler Technologies Incorporated to provide an additional $24,096 for the software upgrades and barcode inventory scanners. Item 16E is a resolution amending Rule 22 of the Rules of Organization, Business, Order, and Procedure of the Council of the City of Kenner to add an additional line item on the council agenda for ordinances for the sale, purchase, transfer, lease, and/or alienation of immovable property. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees.
Anyone? I'm sorry, Councilman Segura. I'm looking at you and not on the screen. I apologize.
No problem. That's better. Just an update. The U-turn lanes on West Esplanade by the Kenner Marketplace, update on that. Today, we opened the bids. The low bidder, if pans out, his dollar amount will be in line with what money we have set aside for this project. So we are looking to move forward. The Public Works Director and staff will be vetting the bid to make sure that the low bidder is a responsible bidder, and then make the recommendation through the administration to come to the council for us to approve the expenditure, and then the work can get started. It has approximately 4-month time for start to completion. So again, we keep hoping, but looks like we now have a workable timeline to say that by August it should be completed, if not sooner, and that just depends on the vetting and approval by the council's timeline. So for all of those who have been interested in the turnaround, it's almost here. So we just gotta get through a little bit more, but at least now we'll start seeing some work going on out there to ensure everybody that it is happening. So appreciate your patience, and we look forward to the improvement that it will bring to the traveling public on West Esplanade and those visiting Kenner Marketplace Shopping Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as everyone knows, I'm sure you've seen the news that on Monday, January the 21st, the city of Kenner and the United States and the world will be celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s holiday celebration, his life, his dreams and desires for his children and everyone's children to be able to live not only in America, but live throughout the world in peace and harmony and together, and to have the same privileges and rights as everyone. And I am proud to say that the city of Kenner has always celebrated this holiday celebration from its inception. There have been states, municipalities, areas that have not, maybe some to this day, that combine different dates together to do it. But we have taken, every mayor has taken the position that this is important enough for our people to be able to celebrate for everyone. So that in itself is an accomplishment for us, for all the administrations, all the mayors, and the people that live here in the city of Kenner. That being said, on Friday, today, from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Martin Luther King Center, which is on 31st Street in the Lincoln Manor subdivision, there will be a presentation that's free to the community that will involve some of the children that attend the center and some of the adults there to this part of a weekend-long celebration for Dr. King. Also on Monday, our 34th annual procession, celebration, parade that will start at Providence, which is right outside of Kenner Baptist Church, with a mile-long procession to the AP Clay Center, which is on Decatur Street. Once we get there, there is an hour-and-a-half celebration with different elected officials. We have churches, we have children from all throughout the community that participate in showing their love, their respect for Dr. King, and to be able, again, to take this one day, if it is one day for some people, to be able to acknowledge his success, to be able to acknowledge your position as it relates to engagement with people who may not look like you, who may not speak like you, who may not worship like you, because that is exactly what Dr. King was about. So if you're not doing anything on January 21st, on Monday, between 11 and 2, please come out and enjoy fellowship with the citizens of Kenner and the surrounding areas at the AP Clay Center, which is at 200 Decatur Street. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. Item 18 is new business. Item 18A, at the request of Councilman Carroll, a discussion regarding the acquisition of Square 104, lots 8A, 6, 7, 17, and 18 of University City Subdivision, Kenner, Louisiana, that was purchased for the sum of $1,500,000. The aforementioned parcel is to be used for building Fire Station number 38 that will be located between Clemson Drive, Duke Drive, and Loyola Drive in District 1 of the City of Kenner.
Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Council President. And I would first like to thank all of the citizens, all of the firemen, policemen, council, administration for being here today to be able to discuss this. And it has been asked by even some of my colleagues and people as to, why we're having a discussion. Because I don't think there's ever a time where you should not discuss as you receive more information. And that is the position that I feel that I am in, and I have gone through this process of getting information as it relates to the purchase of the property to build Fire Station 38. I will do my best to stay on subject for the discussion, but I will just say that it is good to hear the comments from the mayor as it relates to the overall city of Kenner, from our tax base, from what we are doing, what we are going forward, and this is great. And we all should take, everyone in this building should get accolades for that success, and we will continue to do that. But it is also important for us to know that when we talk about accolades, we have to be able to discuss, to address things that sometimes may not be pretty or colorful to be able to discuss. We are to sometimes, influence people with our positions and all. And that's done mostly when we become elected. But once we become elected, our responsibility is to inform. It is to inform, no matter what your position is, to the people who pay our salaries, to the people who pay their tax dollars in the city of Kenner. It is our responsibility to inform. And based on that, my position for this discussion was that that never happened. But this is what it did do. Based on me just simply putting this on the discussion, like I've had before a couple of times, it has brought to light some information that was never had the light of day prior to today, some of it. And that is a fact. At least to me, it was never discussed, which is good. So when we get it sometimes, it's always good to get it. But there are times, and I think the mayor used the cliche, the cart before the horse. This, in my opinion, is some of that what's going on today, the cart before the horse. And that is relating to three things. One, my position, my understanding, my information, and more than that, people from the District 1 era and also around the city. That one, there were questions about the amount of money we are paying for that property. Two, the location of that property. And three, the legal position that we are putting ourselves in, and did it follow the proper procedures as it relates to our charter as being voted on by the city of Kenner. Now, I saw the chart and all that the attorneys addressed and put it out certain dates and through his comments. And some of the things he said I agreed with. Some of the things he said I was a little bit less inclined to either have heard it like that or believe that was the understanding. But some of it I totally disagree with, totally. And I will speak to that based on my information, based on my research, as what I have found so far. And I think I have made it perfectly clear in the news, to my colleagues, to everyone in this building, that I am not, as a council person, nor as my fellow council person, can erase ourselves from what has happened so far. We are as responsible as the administration to get information, to vet information, and to pass it on to our constituents. And in the past, from prior administration and this one, that has never been a question. I am not here to influence anybody to believe what I have to say, nor am I here to accuse anybody of anything. I'm here strictly to address what is facts, what is the facts, or what is lawful. That is it. But we, as a council, did not do our job for that. There is a Russian proverb that says, "Doverye no provye," that was popular in the Reagan administration, which means trust but verify. We trusted, but we did not verify. So we are now have to catch up and verify on things, and that is where we are today. So I'm going to just read my premise for this discussion, a short paragraph, open the floor up for all of my colleagues, for people in the audience that may want to address it, and then close with something after that. So the premise of that is, in my opinion, this council was not informed properly as to the purpose and intent of the resolution on November 17th, 2018, regarding the purchase of the land that is to be used for fire station number 38. We were told that we were voting to approve negotiations that would not exceed $1.5 million. In reality, the language approved the actual purchase of the property, which went totally against the purchase agreement that says closing subject property shall be sold, purchased at a closing to be held on or about January the 10th, and at that time mutually accepted to the seller and buyer after approve of the purchase agreement by the Kenner City Council. That is it. That is in the agreement. That is with every piece of legislation that I have ever sit on this council for, and I've been here longer than a lot of guys as it relates to the 2030 plan, as it relates to our sewer fees, as it relates to this administration, the purchase of the Humanity House on Williams Boulevard and Councilman Segura districts, as it relates to the Safe House for the East Jefferson Levy District. We have always been given information. We have always gone into the community, have meetings to share information. In my opinion, that never happened. We were not giving copies of the appraisals, and later learned that there was 3 appraisals. We were not giving copies of the purchase agreement, which we later learned were not even signed until approximately 2 weeks ago. So we voted to approve a contract that didn't even exist at the time when we voted on it. So in essence, this was brought before the council prematurely. Thank you, Mr. President, and I will have other comments as I close. And I would want all of us here to state the 3 things I brought up, to make it public, go on record saying that you believe that this property was purchased fairly and a fair price, that it is in a good position, and that we legally process this in the right way. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we'll open it up to those that wish to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record.
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive.
May I finish? Let's stick to the point, and please remember, everyone's going to be limited to 3 minutes as well.
Well aware of that, Councilman Brennan. I've been coming to these meetings for over 40 years. Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 47 years. First of all, I share your sentiments, Councilman Carroll, and I support everything that you said. Now, Mr. Rapierre came up here a little earlier and gave a presentation, but now correct me if I'm wrong, okay? There was a 3rd appraisal, am I correct on that, by the DOTD for $660,000 for that property? Am I wrong on that? If I am, I'll stand corrected. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong on that. Was there a 3rd appraisal? Thank you, Councilman. Everything Councilman Carroll just said, I want to say again, I concur with what he just said. And, you know, when I read the article in the paper on the 13th, first thing came to my mind, this may have some elements of political payback involved here. And one other thing Mr. Rapierre didn't say, I would like to know who the owner of this property is. He mentioned the owner, but he didn't call him by name. So I'd like to know who the owner is of this property, and I'd like to know what his ties are, if there are any, to our government down here. Anybody got any comments, any questions? Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Richard Brown, 824 Sessions Lane, Kenner. I'm president of Citizens for a Better Kenner, and I'm here speaking in my capacity as Citizens for a Better Kenner. We have followed this issue for several weeks now. We became aware of it probably a bit late, and then started digging into it. We had a meeting on January 7th, Monday, January 7th, with the mayor and several of his staff and the city attorneys, the chief administrative officer. One councilman was there, Councilman Brannigan. Councilman Carroll was not there, had not been invited from what I understand, even though all of this is in his district. But, oh, you weren't? Okay. I was going to. Sorry. We heard some things here today that we had not been told before. And it sounds to me like we're hearing a lot of trying to justify what was done after the fact. Up until our meeting on January 7th, we were told repeatedly by administration officials that PIAL, the Property Insurance Association of Louisiana, was insisting that this fire station go in this new location. It was our understanding that for 2 or 3 years, the thought had been the fire station would be moved to the police complex.
Council Chairman, look, I'm all about letting the public speak, but I'm not going to let the public, I'm not going to sit here and allow my administration to be attacked. There was a resident in that meeting that is a witness to it that Deborah Foshee did not say that on the public record. She said just the opposite on the public record. That constituent is in the audience. If this is going to turn into a court of law, I will call up that resident, which I'm sure he will actually justify Deborah Foshee's comments. I will never stop the public from speaking, but my administration will not sit here and listen to out-and-out lies. So if you could please correct some of the things that are being said, or if I need to correct it, I need to correct it for the record in defense of my CAO.
Can we let Mr. Brown finish, and then you can comment at the end?
Absolutely, but I'm going to have a problem with not being able to justify at the right time the comments that are being made. If you're the regular citizen looking at this, you would tend to believe some of those accusations.
Mr. President, I'm not making reference to what was said in public comments. I'm making reference to numerous phone calls that myself and the Secretary for Citizens for Better Kenner had with an administration official. We were told repeatedly, and also heard at council meetings, but we were told repeatedly that PIAL was dictating where this fire station goes. We confirmed that that was false right before the meeting when I talked to 2 people from PIAL who said absolutely not. First off, nobody from the city had even contacted PIAL about where the station should go. And secondly, that PIAL does not dictate where stations go. So we and we had been asking to see the PIAL maps for days before the meeting. We asked for it again at the conclusion of the January 3rd council meeting out in the hallway here, between the aisles, if we could see it before our meeting. And we're told, no, you can see it at the meeting. We never were shown it. We were eventually shown one large map that did not show any gaps. So the map to us was basically meaningless. But let me move on.
No, sir, your time is up, Mr. Brown. I'm going to give the administration a chance to reply, but your 3 minutes are up.
All right. Could I ask that I be given a little additional time because of that interruption we had and because
we had stopped the clock, Mr. Brown. We had stopped the clock, sir.
All right.
We had stopped.
Can I ask if somebody will ask that I be given a little additional time?
That's fine. That's fine. Let the administration respond, and then we'll give you an additional minute.
Okay.
I responded to my part already. I'm going to let the CEO clarify some of those comments.
On? No. I don't know what comments we're talking about. In the meeting, I was told that I had told them that PIAL required it go there. PIAL doesn't have the ability to require anyone to do anything. They are a rating organization. It would be like going to the brake tag station and having the brake tag station say you can't get out of here until you put in a new air filter, okay? They don't do that. PIAL gives you points, safety points, based upon where you go and what you do. I have talked a lot about PIAL, particularly in the budgetary process, because improving our rating, improving the safety in the city of Kenner may very well improve the insurance situation for many homeowners. That being said, this is a very limited item in PIAL rating numbers. The biggest number is personnel. Our biggest improvement for PIAL came when we got the SAFER grant and added the 24 new firemen trainees. So the PIAL rating is very important, but PIAL, again, and I think the chief may have said this, is about your property. So the location of the station is within the map circumference. The second question is they were told they could have it, they were told they couldn't have it. The PIAL map is a city infrastructure document. Homeland Security will not allow us to give that document out. We had the map present in front of them. The Emergency Management Department has not produced that map to anyone. They were allowed to see it. They were not allowed to photograph it. They were not allowed to receive copies of it. So I think that answers those 2 questions.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, Mr. President, the point I wanted to make before the mayor interrupted, I was going on to the second aspect of what I wanted to say, which is to the price paid for the land. We are convinced the city paid too much money for the land, and not enough has been made of the fact that, first off, there were 3 appraisals. DOTD appraised the property for $666,000. The city's appraisal was $910,000. The owner's appraisal was $1.9 million. But the owner's appraisal was a hypothetical appraisal based on the hypothetical that the property is rezoned as C2 to permit hotel-motel development, and it was appraised as a hotel-motel being the highest and best use. The problem is that property is not zoned C1. That appraisal was not pertinent based on the current conditions. It's a hypothetical based on hoping the property would get rezoned. It needs to be seriously discounted when determining the fair market value. As I heard one realtor say, it's like appraising a lot in University City as if it was located in Old Metairie. That's exactly what that hypothetical appraisal did. And that value of $1.9 million should have been discounted. State law, the state constitution prohibits the city from paying more for land than it is actually worth. That has been our major objection all along, not the location. We do think the fire station should have stayed south of I-10, but our major objection all along has been the price, not the location.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Hello, Stacy Alessandro, 3309 Chateau Boulevard. You guys, I am livid. I came here to just simply give some information earlier, but after what I've heard sitting in this audience, I'm livid. I have one question that I'd like to ask before I go on. Was this sale of this land completed on January 4th? Can anybody answer that? Yes or no, please? Yes, okay. So I would like the public to know. First of all, I would like to ask you guys up here. We have attorneys, we have bankers, we have insurance agents. Have you guys ever seen a case where a deal of this magnitude, the purchase agreement was signed the day before the sale? These people could have walked away from the sale. We had no purchase agreement until the day before the sale? Does that not raise red flags to anybody? Citizens for a Better Kenner requested and received a copy of the purchase agreement on January 2nd. It had a closing date of January 10th. Now, it was unsigned, of course, at that date. We questioned that. But anyway, on the next day, January 3rd, we came to a council meeting. We were told at that meeting that the purchase agreement was signed that day. Now, at that time, this closing date wasn't until January 10th, the following Thursday, a week later. We raised some questions. We were told that we could have a meeting with various city officials and the administration to answer our questions prior to the sale. So they set up a meeting on January 7th. We attended that meeting. That was the following Monday. At that meeting, various civic groups were represented. None of us were told. They told us we were going to be their sounding board to see what problems might come up. None of us were told that they hurried up and sold it, that it had already been sold on Friday. It wasn't supposed to be sold till the next week. So you have no purchase agreement and suddenly you have one and sell it the next day and then hold a meeting to talk to the citizens? I am livid. Now I find out that you guys were misled. Y'all did not know what y'all were voting on. How can you not know that? I mean, like I said, we have bankers, we have attorneys, we have everybody up there. There's got to be a logical reason for that. Why was the third DOT appraisal not even brought up today until we brought it up, or Councilman Carroll brought it up? Why were y'all not given that? Ask yourselves that. The owner's appraisal, it contains 3 hypothetical assumptions, hypothetical conditions. One, that the cloverleaf design is going to be finished in 2028. Does anybody have a crystal ball that can tell me that's going to happen? No. That it's going to be rezoned to C2. Who knows if that's ever going to happen? It's not even up for discussion right now. And that the economic conditions in the city will remain the same until 2028. This is what it's based on, and we're taking it at its face value that it should even be considered. It's an absurd appraisal. The comps that were used in the owner's appraisal were from Metairie from 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And finally, the owner purchased this land for $180,000. He's only been paying taxes on it as if it's worth $220,000. And now suddenly it's worth $1.9 million. I am aggravated. And also, last thing, this purchase agreement clearly says that it needs to be approved by the council. You guys hadn't even seen it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please. Any comments?
Stephen Pettit, 4816 David Drive. I admit I'm kind of behind on this. I'm learning a lot as I go. But I will say that as an attorney who does a significant amount of real estate litigation, there are a lot of legal things that are wrong with this. So y'all should look at it. Mr. Brown talked about a few, and they need to be looked at. Councilman Carroll, thank you. I appreciate you bringing this up and giving us a chance to speak. And I didn't know until today that it was done, or I should say last night that it was done. So, you know, we'll figure out what the response is. But I will say this. I spent the last year dealing with problems in another municipality that I see the same things happening here. And I can tell you that the city can't afford these kind of problems. You know, we just can't afford these kind of problems. And you know, it's just me, and it's just what it's worth. This council, y'all should really consider getting your own attorney and looking out for your interests, because we can't have this kind of stuff happen. We just can't. It's done now. What do we do now? We go waste more money, or do we suck up the bleeding? Maybe we try to fix it in the beginning first. So thank y'all very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Saley Molina, 3629 East Louisiana State Drive. I just have a few questions. I'm concerned in how these decisions are going to affect the residents of District 1, south of the I-10 in the Susan Park, actually Veterans Heights area. And I've had a few residents reach out to me and just ask, you know, how is the gridlock from the traffic studies and moving the fire station north of the I-10 going to affect them for safety? Are they safe? Are they going to have adequate fire coverage? I also wanted to ask the question if the city is considering changing the zoning in that area to a C2. Is that a valid assumption that we could take seriously?
I mean, again, I don't know who said they didn't have the crystal ball. We don't. But with the airport coming in, I think that is a valid assumption that area is going to develop. We hope so. It would be it would be great for the city if that area develops into to hotels.
Okay. And what about the residents in District 1? Those south of the Veterans Heights residents. I have family that lives there and a few people that have reached out to me that are concerned. They want to know what's going to happen. So I'm really here on their behalf to know what would happen. And I'd also like to make a mention to the council. You know, I've been just watching and looking and admiring a lot of you, and I'm really disappointed that you guys would vote on something without having all the information. Being professionals, being the people that represent the districts individually, it is disappointing and disheartening to see that you guys would vote on behalf of the people and not have the information in front of you that was essential to making those decisions. That's it. If anybody has any comments or any questions. I'd like to know what's going to happen with the residents of District 1, though.
Councilman Carroll? I'm sorry.
There you go. Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Great question. And obviously, everything that's we're talking about today, everything that was not talked about, everything that we are talking about now is for people. You don't live in District 1, but you have family that do. I look across the audience, I see residents from the Veteran Heights and the Susan Park area that do. So obviously, when I think it was mentioned before, 5 years from now, we're going to have to deal with this. But Ms. Franklin and everyone else that lived, they're dealing with it now. So it's not what we are going to do. We are dealing with it now. To the mayor's defense, to both mayor's defense, Zahn and Cantrell, they inherited the situation. But now that you inherited it, you have to own it. So with the traffic study today, with further discussions like this, there is no perfect answer to say what will happen. But to discuss it and to hear from you and from other people, now we have the opportunity to deal with it and to come up with plans. Not only the city of Kenner, but the city of New Orleans, who also has a dog in this fight. We have to come up with something. The money for the flyover, like stated, won't be here for 5 years. We are living with it today. There is no question that we have to move the fire station. There is no question that we have to increase the lands, the driving lands. There's no question there. But how are we going to make this better for the people that we represent? So there is no answer today other than we are working on this as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Pastor Jacqueline Brown Cockerham, 2610 Decatur Street, Apartment A. I just want to share with you all that we are completely and totally naked in Veteran Heights and in Susan Park. Kenner has left the residents of Veteran Heights and Susan Park subdivision unprotected by removing the only fire station that could effectively accommodate us. We really believe that you could have put that fire station somewhere in Veteran Heights. At this point, Loyola, the new area for the fire station, will have access to the station or the services that's off of Vintage. There's a fire station on Vintage Boulevard. With the one coming to Clemson and Duke, there will be two in that area on the north side of Veterans Boulevard. We have none. The closest one would be Williams Boulevard and West Napoleon. We are completely naked, unprotected, unserved. The increase in the lanes of traffic, that's fine, but we lack protection. We don't have the protection anymore. It seems that so much is going on, and even with the presentations and the graphics, should have been more explicit, more succinct, because they were not effective at all. And I've been to several of those meetings. If you're going to do a presentation, the people need to at least be able to see it. I'm going to ask, and I don't know about all of what's going on other than what I'm hearing today, but to move that fire station from those two subdivisions, I think is terrible. Nothing protects us. And with the lanes and the traffic being as heavy as it's supposed to be, it's going to be a hard time getting to take care of anybody in Veteran Heights or Susan Park. Before I leave, I just want to say also that I'm going to ask the residents of Kenner and the nation to keep the Whitaker and Brown family in prayer as we approach the 2nd anniversary of the death of Jaron Brown. Jaron was murdered by Kenner police on January 23rd, 2017. Our family is hurting. You've left a hole in our spirits. The pain doesn't go away, and it is an injustice to all who suffer this atrocity by the hands of those who are supposed to protect and to serve us, black or white. I'm also requesting that the council and the administrators, with all of the economic development that's going on in Kenner and the 2030 plan, the vision for Kenner, that you would consider a facility for the mentally ill, for mental health treatment, and that you will also consider a facility or a training and educational program for the police department.
Pastor Cock,
wish we had-
Pastor Brown, your time has expired,
Okay,
please.
but I wish we had Jaron Brown back, because black and brown people get bullets and robots come for everybody else. Thank you.
My name is Greg Taft, 3720 West Loyola Drive. I'm not going to, I don't have any issues with the location as much as the issues of transparency in this deal. It just seems like a lot of people were not really aware of what was going or taking place to make this sale on the property. I do want to say that the council and administration probably should take heed and look at, you know, what, to make sure that there was no wrongdoing, because it can lead to a lot of problems. I know in financing real estate, I know the state has they keep a thumb on lenders. I'm not so sure how it works when it comes to municipalities or city when it comes to the purchasing of property. The only negative comment that I can say is number one, I don't think everybody knew what the whole deal was about. But the other thing that really stands out is the appraisals, because I've never heard in doing real estate financing using a seller's appraisal. You usually use a bona fide appraisal that gives the comps based on the area in which that you're going to be doing the financing for, or what you're trying to get the appraisal for the property for. And that's my biggest concern, is only on we didn't use the right approach with those appraisals. Now, I understand the negotiations, and I understand that we got behind the hardball. We say DODT said it all of a sudden. I don't know if that really happened. I can't say. But I just find it hard to believe that DODT wouldn't have furnished that a long time ago. Now, as far as them taking that area over, I can't answer that either. I don't know, because that sometimes they might have made that and sprung it on us based on what I heard today. But that is my concerns, and that I just want to bring that up, that we need to make sure that what we did was proper. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Taft. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharon S. Whitaker. And this is Armand Jaron Brown Sr.'s. It's Jaron's dad. I just have a few things I would like to say, and I'm going to keep it brief. And I'm not going to be speaking about racism regarding to how things had been done.
Excuse me, Ms. Whitaker, we're still talking about the firehouse move?
No.
No, ma'am.
No.
No, ma'am. That's what we're addressing at this moment. If you wish to address the council, that'll come up in just a few more minutes.
Okay. I thought everybody was...
That's fine. No, ma'am. That's fine. Just for clarification.
Jack Ziwi, 3221 Illinois in Kenner. Mayor Zahn, you suggested somebody else was in a meeting. Would that be me?
Since you're basically admitting to it, Mr. Ziwi, yes, I just didn't want to call you out by name out of respect.
And did you have a specific question or comment you wanted me to clarify?
Yes, since you're offering that help, I would appreciate it, since it looks like we're under attack here. In that meeting on January, I believe the 5th or the 6th, whatever it was, I believe the comment was made there that a certain group was told numerous times by the administration, maybe some directors, maybe the legal department, maybe by some council people, I don't remember exactly the true comment, but that they were told numerous times that PIL told us, and we told them because of PIAL, we had to go on the property between Clemson and Duke on Loyola. We told them we did not, and that's when you jumped in and offered some help, and I appreciate it. If you could elaborate on that, that would be truly appreciated.
I can do that. Keep in mind, I'm here at great peril, because after that meeting, someone posted on Facebook that I'm a lapdog of this administration, and you don't want to know how mad I was. That's a direct insult. I've never prided myself on being a lapdog of any administration, okay? So I'm not here. I'm going to get some more social media attention. I was there, and it quickly became apparent that this decision occurred in good faith. I could not find anyone in that meeting presenting a bias that would suggest what we experienced for 12 years in this city, outright corruption. With the former administration, there had never been a meeting, and there never would have been the volume of explanation that has occurred over this issue. I can promise you that. I've lived here 44 years, and corruption goes back 100 years, okay? This administration's trying hard to at least explain decisions that have to be made. What I said in the meeting was Ms. Fauché, our lovely CAO, yeah, I'm flattered, okay? She was extremely careful when she even put her toes near the conversation of PIAL. My disappointment was Councilman Segura went ad nauseum about PIAL, of which he knew nothing about. And he led the people in the audience to believe PIAL was somehow deciding this for us. I knew it was false then, and I made it clear in our meeting on January 7th. It was false. What the public doesn't know is PIAL does not say anything about what you do. They simply audit your performance. PIAL is 133 years old. It originated out of advice to the volunteer firemen. That's how it got started. Only in Louisiana can we write a law and put who you have to use to regulate and actually audit your function. Louisiana did that. What the public doesn't know is that PIAL is not recognized by State Farm, the largest insurer in the state. So a resident who's hearing PIAL has nothing to do if you have your insurance with State Farm. Your rates could go up, and you got no control over that. That's what I said. I stand by it. I have no problem with this decision. The thing I asked for in the meeting, and I'd like everybody to know, one thing I think could have provided transparency on this whole thing. I wanted to see an affidavit from the seller saying he's colluded with, discussed with no one on this price. And the CAO said they would ask. The deal is already done, so I'm not sure he's going to want to sign it. But I think in future deals, we ought to get a non-collusion agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zealy.
Anything else, Mayor Zahn?
I think that worked. Thank you.
Councilmember Hayes.
I'm Glenn Hayes. I'm probably the most atypical politician up here. My experience includes about 38 years of banking experience. Some of the people that brought questions just now and comments have already left, and I'm sorry for that. Let me state to you primarily about the amount of money. Those are the three appraisals. Not one person ever called me, and I'm full-time here. I come in every day, and I stated that when I was running. Nobody called me to even talk about this. I can talk about this. I gave seminars as the Louisiana Municipal Association on debt financing, public debt financing. When we had an election statewide in 1990, when Edwards was running against David Duke, my chairman came to me, and I was blessed in banking. I always got the job of starting new things off. Cash management at First Commerce, largest bank holding company in the state. I started First Bank Card Center, largest bank card center in 3 states, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Ran retail. Started a student loan program, $60 million, 23,000 families. In 1990, they came to me and said, look, the state, you may understand that a bank can only make loans at a certain limit based on your size. You have to participate loans up if you're trying to do something over that. We had banks, money center banks in New York that didn't even want to deal with us because of our reputation, given that election. We started what I called institutional banking. There was nothing in the state, including the state treasurer, that we supported, Mary Landrieu at that time, that we weren't involved in. I had people from affiliates banks reporting up to me. We lent millions of dollars to municipalities. We worked under fiscal agency agreements, meaning that you sign an agreement with a lending institution that you are required to lend, and they only deal with you. So I was the senior banker for the state. I was the senior banker for everything here in Jefferson Parish. The sheriff, the 2 hospitals, the school board, 24th Judicial, clerk of court. There was nothing that I wasn't responsible for. And to sit here now and listen, nobody called me. That was available to everybody day one if they would have come in. There were 3 appraisals. The first one was not a 600. It came out to be over $800,000. DOTD. Nobody has said that here. The landowner didn't want to sell. We were dealt a deck of cards that we had to respond to. Ladies and gentlemen, the definition of fair market value, please listen to anything if you hear today this. Fair market value involves a willing seller transacting to a willing buyer with no constraints. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have a willing seller. Before August 24th, when we agreed to the 1.5, we were hearing DOTD talking about, and you've heard the word today, expropriation. What does that mean? That means that they could take this. We would be in court for a year. Can you imagine 5 years from now when you have a traffic jam to and from the airport? Believe me, people will blame the city of Kenner. It won't be forgotten. I had anything in my office to answer any question. Listen to what I said about fair market value. It involved no constraints. We had a tremendous constraint. It was a time constraint. So we had to react. Mr. Carroll, Councilman Carroll, who wrote the memo saying that we were not informed, left the meeting early when we first voted. We voted, please check the records, 6-0. He left early. His district. I don't enjoy this. We talk like this in what is called a mayor's pre-meeting agenda. A lot of this is staged, ladies and gentlemen, because we talk ahead of time, so we don't have hiccups like this. But when I sit here, and I was a banker, state banker, as long as I was, and here people accuse us of lack of knowledge and accuse us of wrongdoing, I have a tremendous problem. The only thing I can offer you is my integrity. I was informed from day one what this was all about. I understood what this was all about. The problem here is lack of knowledge. There aren't many people that lent money like I do. There's no problem about signing a purchase agreement on January 2 and going to the act of sale on January 4th. There's no problem with that. I'm really angry that it's gotten to this point because Mr. Carroll has not attended one pre-agenda meeting. He works full-time. I've been to every one. I'm here full-time. This gentleman, I, and Mike Segura attended one meeting, and then the 3 other people attended another meeting because of open meeting laws. We all should have heard the same thing. To sit here and say, and let me tell you, I've dealt with every municipality in this state. And I can tell you, looking at this table right here, going down the table, you're blessed with a fine administration. Believe me when I tell you that. Mr. Ed Rapier has done a tremendous job. And please, I'm open. You can call me at home. You can call me anywhere. It's on my card. That man, we're going to be made whole at the end of all of this. It's not going to cost this city anything. I don't know where people think this comes from, but this man right here is a tremendous asset to this city. Highly motivated, truly conscientious. I apologized to him the other day for what he has been through. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here. I've always been here. I'm here every day. I can even serve you coffee now when you come to my office. That was the biggest achievement I've had since I've been here. There's nothing illegal about this transaction, nothing at all, because we had 3 times to talk about this, nothing was said. Don't come here after the fact. Say it when you need to say it. At the last meeting, Mr. Brown, you accused us of being pressured on a board nomination. I sat here and took it. Let me tell you, I was pressured. I was pressured. I am pressured, and I always will be pressured to do the right thing for the citizens of Kenner. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Hayes. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. If I could have a moment, please. In the beginning of the meeting, the clerk announces that in accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. And I would also like to remind anyone who is taking video at the council meeting that the council does not allow video taken without prior knowledge. If there's media, cameras, news media, that sort, we're aware that they're recording you. However, if there's individuals in the audience recording from cell phones, please refrain from doing that because you guys are not aware that you are being recorded. So I would just like a gentle, friendly reminder to the audience not to record from their cell phones. Okay?
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
Councilman Wilmot?
One second.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make a comment regarding the lack of transparency. I know, Mr. Greg Teft, you had mentioned that. And I wanted to say on the agenda of November 16th, there were several items on there that dealt with donations of cars. And then at the very bottom, and the last item on there, was this topic about giving the authority for the purchase. So it kind of was at the bottom. So that does concern me that we could have a flaw in the structure of our agenda with the headings. So as a result of spotting that, I went ahead and filed a resolution that's laying over, and it's up for first reading, of course, today. And what it does is simply anytime there's immovable property that's at stake, they're going to come under a separate heading, because that needs to stand out separately. So I just wanted to make sure that it's clear. It needs to be obvious. And your comment, I take and I hope that that will help the transparency effort. So that's all I have, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Segura?
Thank you, Council President. Before I start, I would just like to first apologize if I made Mr. Ziwi nauseated. I try not to when I speak, but if it made you nauseated, please take my apology, and believe me, I don't intend to make you nauseated, but things happen and we'll take that as it is. But what I am concerned with is a lot of things that have been said through this process, and first off is the accusing us of not doing our job. Councilman Carroll, you quoted to the news media, however, you said the council has not done its due diligence when it approved the purchase. We as a council should have done a better job vetting this. Each of us as an elected council member have a responsibility and obligation to the people who elected us to do our job and do it in the fashion as we need to do to get this information to make a vote. So every vote that comes up here on an agenda means we should have done our homework. We, individually, should have sought information. Don't expect it to come on a silver platter to me. I go out and look for information. I go out and ask the questions to get the questions answered. On this matter, this is not a new topic. We've been dealing with this sale of a fire station since the inception of the airport 2012, whatever it was, announcement that an airport was going to be built and Loyola needed to be expanded for traffic problems. Obviously, our fire station is right in the middle of that traffic problem. It was known for a long time. But yes, and I keep saying this, as I said earlier on noise studies, the former administration in the city of New Orleans chose to build their airport without worrying about the city of Kenner's traffic problem. They made that decision. They stuck us with this. They knew our fire station had to be removed. They didn't care. They didn't come to us through previous mayor's administration of this city and say, hey, how you want to handle removing your fire station so we can expand the lanes of Loyola or put a, because it has to go, whether we put lanes there or a flyover, that's why the fire station has to go. So this is not new. This is not a new topic that just all of a sudden someone turned the light switch on and it's like in front of us. There's been conversations right, left between council members, administration, public, news media reports constantly about this. So to say that we didn't do our diligence puts a burden on each one of us to say that we've been asleep at the wheel while this is going on, and I take offense to that because I do have conversations, administration, fire department, city of New Orleans, whoever I need to talk to get information to help make a vote. When it comes on an agenda, in this case from the administration, it shows up, and I think the date was, what, November 1st was the first time? Okay. It shows up as a first reading on our agenda, as all ordinances. It's not a resolution, as said earlier. It's an ordinance, so it does become a fact of law and has to sit for 2 meetings, or at a minimum. Some take 28 days they got to sit. So when this showed up on the November 1st agenda, which we all get an email the Monday before a council meeting that gives us the agenda. It gives us the resolution, it gives us the ordinance, it gives us the backup paperwork, whatever. That's the light bulb in my head says, I got to get to work. I got 2 weeks now to get my questions answered and get my needs in order. So when you start that process, you should be ready on the meeting day that it's going to get voted on. As said by Councilman Hayes, we have agenda meetings with the administration before each council meeting that allows us to meet with the administration one last time, because now we're getting ready to vote. This is not a, oh, I'm just going to hear about it now discussion. It's a, is there any last minute change that I need to be aware of? I have to ask that question. I don't have to rely on the administration going, here, Councilman, here's what you should see. I'm going to ask the question that I want to see answered and get that information. So I attend, as Councilman Hayes said, we all attend. Perhaps some have other schedules more important that prevent them from coming to agenda meetings, that they don't come and ask that question that they may need answered. I came, I asked my questions, got all my answers together so that on the November 16th date that we made a vote, I was ready to vote. But you know what I voted on? And I'm going to read it. An ordinance authorizing the purchase of Square 104 Lots 8A, 6, 7, 17, 18, University City Subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish. That's the heading. Then it goes into the whereases. The whereases are just an explanation of what it means. The council for the city of Kenner hereby ordains. That's the key. That's what triggers what we are dictating by this vote to become a law. And it says in section 2 that the mayor of the city of Kenner is authorized and empowered to execute any and all documents as may be required for said acquisition. At that vote, which was a 6-0 vote, I will take the credit and say I authorized him to finish what he had to do, sign the paper, and buy the land. We knew at the price of the land was going to be at that point. We had that information. I had that information. I will allow any other councilman to explain what knowledge they had. I had that explanation. Of course, it is also in the legislation that said the price is 1.5. So the statements that were made that people are upset or embarrassed that this council didn't do their work, I take offense to that wholeheartedly because we do work hard to make sure we do our work. The process of getting information is our responsibility. Sure, we love when the administration hands us stuff simple and easy and says here, here, but it is our job to ask those questions, get those answers, and then make a decision on how we're going to vote. And the key is make the vote. Don't walk out. Stay here and make the vote. Now, other things that have been said, and I do apologize, again, like I said earlier to Mr. Ziwi about making him nauseated on the presentation I said about PIAL. I clearly understand, he'll take difference of opinion, I understand that, how PIAL operates, but I have heard for years and years talking to fire chiefs how the PIAL board dictates the operation of them based upon the scoring of their assets, the scorings of their personnel, the scorings of everything they do, and that is what determines what their recommendation to the insurance companies, and as you said, State Farm does not participate, but all of the other insurance companies that choose to take their recommendation as to the solid well-being or whatever terminology you want to use of a fire station in a particular governmental entity to determine the fire premiums that that insurance could and should charge the residents and businesses in their homeowners insurance, their business insurance. So it's always been a thought, a desire to be in a Class 1 rating. Class 1 rating is the best that the PIAL board will give a fire department. And at any point, fire chief, please scream and holler if I'm saying something wrong. That allows that Fire 1 rating to be applied to that city, which then, in our good hope, will lower insurance premiums for our businesses and residents. So as the PIAL board comes in and assigns points to everything that they do, the discussion of where this fire station would go was part of that discussion, as I appreciate, because of the points that can also be assigned to where it's at. If you put it too far to the right or too far to the left, they would assign more or less points. And Mr. Jack, if I'm wrong, I see you shaking your head, but that's what I've been told. Now, we can have a meeting and you can give us a presentation on the PIAL board. I'd greatly appreciate that on how they rate, but that's what I've been told. They rate you on what's in front of them when they do their inspection. They come there with a checklist. Chief, is that right? They come in with a checklist. Do you have this? No. Do you have that? Yeah. Do you do this? Yeah. And then they rate those questions with a point, and then that totals up and then gets a magic number that says you're now a Class 2, 3, 1 city fire station. It is our desire to get to that Class 1 for the benefit of our citizens and our businesses. As Ms. Fauché has said, and you're aware, many, many other steps are taking place to get there. The SAFER grant, which allowed us to hire 22 firemen, is a 24. Thank you for correcting me. Is a big plus. But realize, folks, that's a grant. It's going to expire. And when it expires, we got to come up with that money to make sure we keep those firemen, correct? I see the finance director shaking his head. So these are things that I agree. I know the grant's going to only be for a period of time. They used to have it in the police department, cops more. Same, we went through that when I was in the police department, that we hired a whole bunch of people under those grants, and then when the grant expired, we had to, in conjunction with the city, find the money to keep them. So let's not be too shallow-minded to believe that. How long is that grant for? 3 years? All right, in 4 years, we got to come up with that kind of money. Mayor? So let's not get fooled with that. So we have plenty of things to do to keep trying to get to a Class 1 rating. The location, as I said, and Mr. Jack, I can see the head shaking in a minute, is a part of it, and it's only a part of it. I got that, but it is, we could be 1 point shy, and that might have been the one thing that got us over the top if we'd have had it in the right place. So I just really irks me when you know, and Greg, Ms. Carroll, please don't take this personally, but yeah, that's a misjudgment on your part to say that the council did not do its work. If you'd have clearly said, hey, I didn't do this and I didn't that, I'm okay. If it was me that didn't do it, I'd say it too. But I know, and I'm sure from at least Councilman Hayes and maybe others, that we reached out and got the information that we certainly needed to vote and understood what we were voting on. And for the citizens out there that think that they were left out, Madam Clerk, when you published the agenda for our council, is this not what you publish? It's a heading, but they can get to it from the website to see what the item is?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Teff, you're very diligent at sending out the agenda, correct? So, it's out there. It's in the public eye. If somebody chose not to come and ask questions of anybody, whether it's any councilman, any administration figure, from November 1st to November 16th, and even after that, maybe that's on y'all. And let me be clear on that. Putting up a speed trailer ordinance was not a camouflage to hide this, as it was alleged to me after that meeting. This was clearly two separate items, two separate meetings that this was discussed, and nothing was done. Councilman Wilmot, not to, again, throw anything toward you, but the fact of where a ordinance is in relation to its position on an agenda. Madam Clerk, please explain how that position comes about, what number an item is given.
It's just determined on the type of the ordinance, where it falls on the agenda.
And then once it gets in that category, what determines what number? It's A, B, C, D, whatever. Huh?
It's in the order received, right? Oh, yes, it's in the order that it's received by the clerk's office. We clock all items in.
Thank you. That is how it gets to that position. It's not purposely put at the bottom of the list to make it less significant, make it less important.
Absolutely
it's done in a systematic form of when it arrives in her office, it gets stamped, time-stamped, and then it's the next spot in line. So the fact that there was other items ahead of it just means that they got there before this one. The placing, I know this is your discussion for later, but we'll discuss that on that at the next meeting. So I know people say I talk a lot, but when I get riled up, I'm going to talk and get my point out. So maybe I think I got it out, so I'm going to quit. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. Z, we got a bucket out. I don't know what that means. Councilman Brannigan?
Yeah, the only thing that I wanted to add to this, everybody got a lot of information tonight, is that the city attorneys, I know that they work for the city, but they work for us too. And there was a statement made tonight today that said that we need to get our own attorneys. Everything that Ed and Lee have told me, and I've only been here for a little bit over 6 months, but everything that they've told me has panned out. Even when I made a mistake on the homeless people, they slapped my hand and told me, you shouldn't have pushed this. But everything that came out with the purchase, everything that you've heard tonight, we've heard 5 times already. It's a situation where if Ed would have told me the city appraisal is $400,000 and the owner's appraisal is $2 million, and the numbers don't jive, then he would have been lying to me. Everything that he has told me in regards to the appraisals and the process that we have had was to put this thing in place because we were under time constraints, and there was nothing missed. So, Ed, I think that you did a great job putting this stuff together, and it's a situation where we need to look at the whole picture. We were informed, or I was informed, and I looked at everything, and it's a situation where I rely on these city attorneys, and I will rely on these city's attorneys until they put me in a bad position, and I don't think that's going to happen.
Yes.
I hate to interject, but I know Councilman Brannigan mentioned about the comment on us getting our own attorney. And I think there's another little point of clarification that
The charter doesn't allow it.
That's where I'm going. Our city charter, the one that y'all all say we've got to abide by, clearly says that's our city attorney, and they represent the city administration and the council. If you want us to have our own attorney, go change the charter. Let us know. Come to us and beg us to change the charter. We'll put it out for a vote, and if that's what the vote says, we'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Wilmot?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to mention a couple of things. One, I know Councilman Segura, you had mentioned about the sequence of items that appeared on the agenda and how they appeared and so forth, and how it's just how it's taken in time sequence. And I agree with that. And I appreciate you pointing that out. I didn't mean to imply anything other than that. It's just the way it unfolded, simply put. It's just the way it appeared on the agenda. So I don't mean to imply anything other than that. That's one thing. And then the second thing is, and I just wanted to say, I bent Mr. Ed Rapier's ear throughout this process, and I appreciate it. He's filled with a ton of information on this. Of course, he handled it from up front, and so I do thank you for that, and it was quite helpful, our communication back and forth. So thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilmot. Councilwoman McKinney?
Yes, I just wanted to clarify, that I feel like I was provided adequate information to make an informed decision on the purchase of the property. There were any questions that I had to answer, they were answered, and I just want to move forward from this instance with this administration and work together for the better for the citizens of Kenner.
Thank you, Councilwoman McKinney. Councilman Carroll?
Thank you, Mr. President. And first, let me say that, hey, I want to answer Councilman Segura saying that not to take offense. I never take offense. And I hope he doesn't take offense if I say something that I truly believe. I'm a big boy. I can handle this. But isn't it funny that now we've had all this conversation where we never had it before? Even on November the 16th, he never asked one question about any of this stuff that we're talking about now. He may have been given the information, but I wasn't given the information. I wasn't. So for him to say or to believe that nothing was done wrong and the administration did everything right, he did everything right, I admitted to everyone that I believe me and the council, because that's what I believe, did not do our due diligence. He talked about the sheet that we had. It was one sheet, no backup documentation, no information, no appraisals, nothing, because the agreement hadn't been signed. He talked about the charter. Yes, it is the charter. We have to follow the charter, not just to have it. We did not follow the charter because it has to come back to the council, and we have not followed the charter on other things, or one specific thing also. So it's one thing to say we have the charter, but we have to follow the charter. And for Councilman Haynes to say that I work, everybody up here work except Councilman Hayes, and when I get to be his age, I hope I'm not working either. But the point is, we all work. There's nothing wrong with me working. There's nothing wrong with everybody up here working. I'm not breaking the law. I am doing what I'm supposed to do as a father, as a husband for my family. So for me to leave a meeting that I had the understanding that we were only, like I said before, we were only giving the information to approve a negotiation with the understanding that it had to come back to us because we had nothing at that point. No information, things could have changed. So why would I believe that was it? I believed we were just giving the mayor authority to negotiate, not the final product, and that's exactly what I thought it was. It is also for Councilman Hayes and Segura, it is not my responsibility to go to the mayor's agenda meeting. That is for the mayors, the people that work for him. I work for the citizens of Kenner. It is not my responsibility. It is not anyone here's responsibility or the mayors to come with me when I go to meetings for people in District 1. It's not your responsibility, it's my responsibility. So I don't expect you to come. So don't expect me to have to go there. If I'm able to attend, fine. But if I can't, I am not responsible to go there. I'm responsible to come here. And it is the administration responsibility to give us information, documentation, appraisals. Obviously, Councilman Hayes hasn't been on the council but 7 months. So he doesn't know the history of being an elected official, that from prior administrations, this is what has been done in the past. Given them information, shared with the public, shared with the council, documentation, all of that. That is what has to be done by the administration. We don't have to ask them for everything. It is their responsibility to supply us with their information, what their position is, to give it to the public, to have meetings for different things. The 4 different things I mentioned before, we extensively had meetings, gave it to the public. As it relates to the PIAL and the meeting that I wasn't at, listen, Ms. Forshey and I have a great relationship. I wasn't there. Sometimes people say things or don't say things. I don't want to even go into that because that's not important. The reality is we are talking about this now, and we did not talk about the traffic study that came out tonight. We didn't talk about the location of it. Any of that stuff was never talked about publicly. So for Councilman Segura to say for him to call, well, fine, that's for you to call, but it is also your responsibility to share this information with your constituents, not in a back room somewhere where you're talking to someone. Say it publicly, ask the questions so everybody will know. That is your responsibility. Nothing more, nothing less. If you choose not to do that, that's your prerogative. But for me, it is important for us to discuss it publicly, so everybody can hear it. It is important to receive information. And what it does, listen, there's no hard feelings. What it does is it gives information and different questions so we can talk about it to make it better. At the end of the day, we have to go on from this to make this better, and it's going to affect the city of Kenner for the next 4 or 5 years. It's affecting the people now that live in District 1 right now. So you can't get mad and get upset about what people say, but you can get upset when you are not given information to be able to share, and that is my concern. That never happened. And everybody had their opinion, but not one person said that I was wrong by saying that the cost of it, they never addressed that, some of them did. What, did they think it was too high or not? Never addressed that. Did your location, did you have an opinion about that? Or that legally, did we do the right thing? They just chose not to address it, I guess. And that's fine too. I'm not debating that. You know, you have an opinion, you say what you want to say, but for me to ask for information, I am not wrong to ask for information. I'm not wrong to assume that I should receive information on stuff. So now, once I get it, then I will have additional questions. That's all I'm asking for, just to get the information so I can ask additional information. So, you know, a lot have been said as it relates to the seller, the appraisals. I mean, there was a number of red flags that came up we should have addressed, we as the council and we as the administration too, that we should have addressed. There's no two ways about it. No one should walk away from here thinking that you did everything right for this situation. If you do, you are fooling yourself to believe that everything was done right with this. And I'm not afraid to say I did some things wrong, and I will get better going forward with this. But at the end of the day, based on the property that we don't have to purchase, the most important thing, are we doing the best thing with the monies for the taxpayers of the city of Kenner? I think someone said that, well, it's free money. Well, it's not free money, because who money is it? It's the taxpayers' money. I don't care if it's state, federal, whatever. It is our money. It is our responsibility to due diligence to spend that money wisely, to spend it on things that's going to support the people. Now, we're spending 1.5 on the land. We still have to build a fire station. Will we have enough to build a fire station? And if we don't have enough, where would that money come from? It's going to have to come from the people. Simple as that. So, I mean, that is something we should have talked about on November 16th, too, that, hey, why are we spending so much money on the land? We still have to build the fire station. So I'm saying, you know, we're not trying to, we disagree on some of the things about this, and which is safe to be, and I am as much disagreeing as anyone else on certain things. We could possibly put ourselves in a liability situation by paying for something that was actually more than what it's worth. Should we not even consider and talk about that? Of course should we talk about that. Because we are the people that pay the taxes to the city of Kenner that would put us in litigation to address that if someone chose to sue on that ground. Again, my 3 areas of concern: the cost of the property, in my opinion, was too excessive. The question, after riding around with citizens and businessmen in the city, is that the ideal location for the firehouse? Because I promise you, after years to come, we will have to build some type of fire station on the south side of Veterans for the people in Veteran Heights. That's going to happen, and it's going to have to happen. And third, we did not, as a council, it is our responsibility, and as Councilman Segura said, in the charter, we have to vote on that. So when things are discombobulated or presented to us in a fashion where, you know, myself, I'm speaking for myself, thinking that it's coming back, and it doesn't come back, and I'm thinking we're given the authority to negotiate, that I have a problem with that. So we learn from this, we go forward. I look forward to working with everyone, the administration, Ms. Foshi, and everybody else here. But those are my opinion, and whenever there's an opportunity to bring things up and to discuss that I feel was not discussed to the people, the people here shouldn't be bad because they ask questions. Don't try to make someone feel bad because they ask questions. If they didn't understand, it is their right as a taxpayer to ask questions. Always. Who are we to say that, well, you should do this or you should do that? No, you shouldn't. You should do exactly what you did today. And you should do it next council meeting and the following council meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for listening to me. If you agree, fine. If you don't agree, we're going to have other things we don't agree on. So I look forward for this, that we continue to try to make this better for the city of Kenner. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor Zahn.
You know, I guess the last 51 years, I've realized that we don't live in a perfect world. This was not a perfect situation, not in a perfect world. So there are parts that I agree with Councilman Carroll. There are parts that I just have to maybe not disagree, but defend myself. And it sounds like a number of you all have defended yourselves that you did do your due diligence. I appreciate those comments from you all, because when y'all say that, you're actually defending this administration and your own legal department. Because, you know, when you have a constituent come up and talk about getting your own lawyer, well, just because things don't work out in other municipalities doesn't mean it's time. This isn't a, you know, apply here at the city of Kenner. And if y'all look into that, you might want to get answers for yourselves on that comment. And I think that's something coming from somewhere else. But you do have your own attorney, and your own attorney has done their due diligence. And I guess we didn't do a good enough job for some people in the audience, and maybe still for Councilman Carroll, on the presentation. I guess it's my fault that I kept it right to the point and didn't bring politics into it or didn't accuse anyone in my presentation of not doing their job. When we have 4 times on a public agenda that the council puts up or the administration puts up, legal, that's doing due diligence. When you take those agenda meetings, and you're right, Councilman Carroll, you don't have to, I don't have to have agenda meetings. You don't have to attend it. But after 2 years, I would have appreciated you attending one. You have not attended one in 2 years. That is not my fault. I'm not blaming you on that. But if I was a council person and I sat in that seat right there, District 3, and I sat in the District 4 seat of the parish, if I had questions from my legal department or my administration, and I've worked with at least probably 3 administrations, either in the parish and in the city, maybe 4, actually 4 administrations. If I had a question, I asked it. We didn't have the opportunity of agenda meetings. The mayors that I worked with didn't call for agenda meetings. And you know what? I'm not faulting those 2 mayors for not calling agenda meetings, but I'm not going to sit here and be faulted for calling agenda meetings, because calling agenda meetings means that we're explaining to the council what you need to know. Look, transparency, I'm all for it. But I don't think anybody, and the audience is probably not for, you know, 6-hour council meetings. We address the issues that have to be addressed, which gives the public a synopsis of what we're doing. The public has the right to go and pull up these agendas in first reading, like you said, 2 weeks ahead of time, just like you do. So I urge you, if you're not going to make the agenda meetings, that's fine. I don't think it's great, but it's fine, because that's your perspective, and I appreciate that. But I don't think I should be faulted for doing agenda meetings. I don't think the administration should be faulted for not giving a certain council member what they did not ask for. When you say you're not giving it, I don't believe I was asked. But even when you do ask for something, like a memo you sent me on January the 9th, and I do respond within 1 day, within 24 hours, on January the 10th, 8 days ago, over a week, I'm still waiting for you to come talk to me. So when I do reach out to Councilman Carroll, I don't get the same response. Is it where I shouldn't respond to you? Because my response said, as always, my door is open and I'd be pleased to meet. Please contact Michelle. That was 8 days ago. We have not talked about this. I don't think it's my job for any council person, any other elected official. Sorry, guys, I'm going to say this. After I respond, after I give you the information, I don't think it's my job to go say, you still want to talk? You still want to? We're running a $60 million business, this CEO with this board. That's what you are. You're the board of directors running this city with us. I don't have the time, as I'm talking to other groups, Atlantis, the Esplanade Mall, on property deals, property situations that we may be approached with in the future. I don't have the time to go back and pursue one council person who left that council meeting, who has not attended agenda meetings. And this is not a beat up on you. I mean, there's a list of things that you accused us of. If you take the 2 out of the 4 public hearings, the 2 first readings, the 2 times that y'all had opportunities to vote on this where nobody else has a question, that's actually 8 agenda meetings that these items were discussed in. That does not become, because if you take the different groups, that's 8 agenda meetings. That does not become the problem or the lack of informing a certain council member or any council member, but right now I'm only being attacked by one, that we did not do our due diligence on behalf of the council, on behalf of the administration. The council, I feel, did do their due diligence. When I hear comments about that the purchase agreement, and Ed Rapier will get into this in a minute, the purchase agreement was already done or the active sale was already done, they weren't notified about that when they met. Look, again, we give you all the information you ask for, but I guess certain constituents and also you, Greg, are asking for me to go even further while we're doing addressing other issues. I only can go so far for the questions that I'm asked. I'm not going to assume anymore that you are educated on this or educated on everything when you don't ask questions. I guess we're just going to go through all these discussions because we're going to change some things on the agenda. We're going to put a synopsis on the agenda. We're going to be more like Jefferson Parish, and God knows I hate to say that. I hate to sit here and say this government has to be more like another government. Nothing wrong with the parish government, but I don't think we have to copy others. But you know what? In this case, I guess our due diligence will be to give synopsises. And that was something that Councilman Brannigan was talking to me about and Deborah Foch the other day. I thank you for that. I should have done that because obviously we're having some issues. I think when we hear the comments about a city attorney, your own attorney, I think I'm nauseated. I want to puke because no. I'm getting there. I mean, that is undoing the charter. And God knows we've been through some things with the charter that when we are sued, even by our own people, we wind up having to pay lawsuits that we don't want to. There was a certain councilman that used to sit in a District 3 seat. I won't say his name. But he got this city into that. That is not where we want to go again. We don't want to get into these lawsuits. There were certain comments made that they didn't feel like they got enough information. This little blue book, this is the second one that I'm on. It goes to every meeting with me. I won't call anybody out by name because I haven't done that to the other 2 or 3 speakers. But this person knows that when they say in a meeting, and I wrote it down exactly how they said it, we're in a bad place due to the procedures not being done because of the entrance and the exit. That was made by one of the residents in that meeting. They acknowledged in the meeting, and it's got quotations around it, so it means that person said it. They acknowledged before they left, they knew we were in a bad place. They also said, so I guess we are being made whole. Those were some pretty good comments. So when they left that meeting, I thought that the next step was to do this press release. In the meantime, as Facebook, went on and comments were made, I thought it was important to inform the public that some of those members in that meeting, and I quote, Councilman Carroll, and I don't feel this way, I quote, in the hood, in the slum, is where you're putting a fire station. I was nice in my press release. So as you think that these people are behind you, and you think that these people are saying what they want you to be, their leader, that's great. Just be prepared to know, I do not feel that in Clemson and Duke on Loyola is the hood. I represent the people of District 1, the people of District 5, just like you and Councilman Brennan do. I don't think it's the slum. I don't think it's the hood. It was actually said again by in one war, it's the hood. It's the hood. I am quoting. I am not saying it because I don't need another worldwide issue on something like this that could be taken racist. I am not a racist. It's the hood. It's in the slum is not things that I think want to be said at a public hearing. But I think, Councilman Carroll, because I truly believe we're still friends, I think you need to know that the people in your ear consider your district the hood and the slum. I got a problem with that. I would have to say you have a problem with that. I would have to say 6 council members have a problem with that. So as we sit here and we take this whipping, and I'll be nice because you know what kind of whipping it is. As we sit here and take this whipping, I'm not going to sit here and listen to my District 1 constituents, nor anybody else, be considered the hood and the slum. I'm not going to not tell you all that when they leave a meeting, they are satisfied. Councilman Hayes, I think you did a fantastic job. I think this council is one of the best councils I've seen in a long time. We have a budget analysis on the council. Is that correct? We have 2 insurance agents in 2 different fields, Councilman Brennan and Councilman Brannigan, and McKinney is the budget analysis. We have a longtime businessman and banker on the council, a former president of the chamber, I believe. Organizations that we've never had before. We have your perspective coming from New Orleans prison, which we need that. We need that perspective to work with the police department. We have a former police officer who has probably 25, 30 years in the Kenner Police Department and JPSO. And we have an attorney slash, I don't know if I should say this, a nurse, but it's a male nurse. RN, I'm sorry. We have different perspectives that I don't think we've ever had before. This is not what we should be fighting over. And I don't think our presentation was a fight. I got to tell you, I mean, I still think we're friends, but I think your discussion was a little bit of attack on me. And look, let's get past that. Let's get past the attack. Let's at this point move forward, because today for tomorrow that we do hold this up with a citizens organization or that they feel that a councilman is behind them holding it up, I'm going to ask this council, what the hell are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I hate to even go this far because I don't want to give them this idea. But let me just explain to the public and to the rest of you all. Most of you all have heard this. What do we do if the DOT doesn't send us the check? Does anybody have the idea? Look, y'all got council funds. That's probably where I'm going to come to you. Is that what we want to do? Is that what we want when we have yeah, absolutely. It is a $5 million gift from the state and the feds that we're getting in the city of Kenner. Look, y'all behind me, y'all can take that and run with it that I said we got a gift. We absolutely got a gift. I'm saying it. It's a $5 million gift, a legal gift from the state and from the feds. We're about to screw that up. Is that what we want? We're trying to work stuff with the Esplanade Mall. We're trying to work stuff with the Atlantis Corporation. Is that the guys that we want to look at the city of Kenner and say, what the hell are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? Y'all can't even take a $5 million gift. Why do we want to invest in your city? Let's just try and move forward from this. Let's try and be whole. Let's try and work as one. I'm willing to move forward. If this gets held up, we have a problem. We have a problem because we don't have $1.5 million. We don't have that. We're going to have to go and get that from someplace. And right now, guys, you know where it's at? It's in councilmatic funds. Is that what we want? There's nothing else I can say. I want to move forward with you, Councilman Carroll. In spite of the things, I want to move forward. I want to get this over with. I want to give your people, my people, Councilman Brennan's people, Councilman Wilmot and Christy McKinney's people, what they deserve. A first-class fire station, a first-class rating, and get to it, and let's keep attracting business. I want to come back next month or next quarter and tell you that we're $900,000 more again. I want to keep saying those things. Don't listen to the, disgruntled employees that might come up here that used to work here, former employees, that seeking job applications. I think you know what I'm talking about. Don't listen to some citizens that sat in a meeting with us and got all this information that call the maps waste of time and useless, because they're not. One of you all said that we're dealing with, I think you, Councilman Hayes, we're dealing with one of the best administrations. Look, I'm dealing with one of the best councils, so I appreciate that too. I'm dealing with one of the best police chiefs and fire chiefs. Let's just move forward, guys. Thank you, Council Chairman. And I think Ed Raby, your attorney, my attorney, has something to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it's lit up as Lee Roussel, but I assumed that when I saw the nameplate.
Yes, I'm not quite as pretty as Lee Roussel. Councilman Carroll, I'm going to answer at least two of the three issues you had out there, which is legal and value. But I think we need to make a distinction between facts and opinions, because you keep saying it is a fact that the council as a whole didn't know what was going on. Wait, but actually they did, and I'll get to that in a minute. And I'll explain it to you in a second, Councilman. But you said the council as a whole didn't know what was going on. That is your opinion, that is not fact. Fact is that your 6 council members said they were clearly informed of what's going on. So let's get to the legality of it. On November 1st, council meeting, there was a ordinance put up for, and some people have read bits and pieces, but I'm going to read the entire thing to make sure, because words have meanings, and there could be nothing clearer than what I wrote in this ordinance. So ordinance, it's summary number 12,456. You all as a council as a whole voted on it, and it became ordinance number 11,491. The title was, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of Square 104, lots 8A, 6, 7, 17, and 18, University Subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Whereas, in order to provide for improvements to the Loyola Drive for traffic flow to the new airport terminal, the current Fire Station 38 must be relocated. And whereas a vacant parcel of undeveloped land within the responsive area for Fire Station 38 is located between Clemson Drive, Duke Drive, and Loyola Drive, and whereas the parties have negotiated the sale of said property so as to avoid time delays and uncertainty of the expropriation process, the Council for the City of Kenner hereby ordains. So let me stop for a second. The last whereas says we have negotiated a purchase. Now, Section 1. The acquisition, not the negotiation of, not we're thinking of buying, the acquisition of Squares 104, lots 8A, 6, 7, 17, and 18, University Subdivision, Kenner, Louisiana, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, for the sum of $1.5 million is authorized. It's not the negotiation is authorized, the acquisition is authorized. Plain, clear English. Section 2, the mayor of the city of Kenner is authorized and empowered to execute any and all documents as may be required for the said acquisition. This was to vote to buy. Not to negotiate, but to buy. And it is in clear language. If anybody had any questions, it was on the agenda 2 times. We had agenda meetings. We discussed with council members. This office, the city attorney's office, is open, has phone numbers. You have my cell phone number. Nobody raised a question. In the agenda meetings when we discussed it, about the only question that ever got raised is where was the volunteer fire department? It is the opinion of the legal department. This is the only document that is required. Period. No purchase agreement, no nothing. The question was raised by people in the audience that I can't believe a purchase agreement. The city didn't the city did not sign a purchase agreement. The city is not required to sign a purchase agreement. The city is protected in its purchase here. The purpose of a purchase agreement is to enforce the deal. The city had expropriation rights. If we were not going to close, we were going to expropriate it. This was to avoid expropriation. So, is the deal legal? Yes. Did the city attorney's office do everything it could to notify everybody of what was going on? I'm not a mind reader. If I don't give you the information you think you need, please call me. I will gladly give you anything you ask. I have done it in the past. I will do it in the future. So, is it a legal transaction? Yes. This is an ordinance. This is law. It supersedes contractual rights. Value. Everybody's been bouncing around the word, the number, $666,000, if that's the DOT valuation. Well, that's a flat-out false statement. If you look at the DOTD appraisal, it says it's worth $801,988. And in fact, if you looked at the agreement, the IGA, that you voted on December 21st, 2018, approving the IGA where the state is paying us $3.4 million, that agreement says 2 things that are most important. First, whereas as of the date of this agreement, which is dated December 28th, 2018, as of the date of this agreement, the parties have not been able to negotiate a full and final settlement as to the value of the functional replacement for the permanent relocation of the city's current fire station. The parties agree as follows. two things. Responsibilities of the DOTD. The DOTD agrees to provide funding to the city, and it goes through a whole lot of lines, and I'm going to skip some of it because it's unimportant. And I just lost my spot. It has in there the $800 and something thousand for the value of the land. Further down, it says, both parties acknowledge and agree that the city has reserved all of its rights concerning the funds to be paid to this agreement, pursuant to this agreement, which means in legal jargon, we have reserved our rights to sue the DOTD if we can't come to an agreement on the dollar amount that we're supposed to be paid. Back to value. We had our appraisal that said $910,000 for a 65,000 square foot piece of property. We had the appraisal for the donut shop that was $825,000 for a piece of property that was a third of the size. And we did have their appraisal which had the numbers that it had. Did it have a condition in it? Yes. Does that make the appraisal wrong? No. Did we avoid litigation cost and the potential downside of a much higher judgment? Yes. So I take offense on some of the things that have been said. And there was one other issue that I wanted to bring up. If you have any questions, Councilman, call me. I will always answer your questions. I have in the past, will in the future. But to say that this council, or you in particular, were not provided information, the council as a whole was, I don't read minds. But I will gladly provide you any information you want, and I'll answer any question you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Roussel. It's a joke. Councilman Hayes?
Yes, I want to do a free advertisement right here. I'm not retired. I have a company. It's called Health Insurance Marketplace, and I deal with young people 65 and over. And as far as being old, what's my alternative? Thank you so much. I make a motion to adjourn. I can't? See, you're right, Greg. I don't know the rules up here.
Thank you, Councilman Hayes. Councilman Carroll?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Without going into everything that's been said, I would like to address Mayor Zahn and to say that, yes, we will. Listen, I'm not a person to hold grudges or anything. I consider you my friend, too. Another thing, I don't respond or I don't react, as you insisted, what other people say are in my ear. I listen to everyone. It doesn't mean I agree with them or let them drive me into a position, because I could say the same thing about you, that you listen to certain people. But I hope you don't. But I'm going to listen to what people have to say, gather it all together, and then when I say what I say, it is based on the information I've gathered, and this is my position on it. Simple as that. It is when people make sometimes remarks that are derogatory, that are racial, whatever, that is the world we live in today. It is something I live with. My father, my grandfather, they all had to deal with. So who am I to get all upset about it? It happens, and I deal with it and go on. It's not a reflection on me. It's not a reflection on the people that I represent. I don't use the term slum and all that kind of stuff. I don't use that either. So if it was said, okay, it was said. There are probably other things said that I'm not privy to. So I won't react to that either, because it just doesn't make any sense. I have never said, ever said, that any of the attorneys are not competent or not doing their job. Never. Never, never, never. What I have said is that for this particular legislation, and I say the same, we disagree on the way that it was presented. I say that I think it is your responsibility to give me information. Now, I may have other questions, and you and Ms. Roussel and everyone has always given it to me, but it is important for us to get information that will stimulate other questions. And I hope if you take anything from today, that we get assessments, appraisals, or information like that we don't have. So what I ask, well, give me an appraisal. So if you give me one, well, it was 3, give me all of them. So give me the information that I can use to do a better job and to ask questions if I have any. As far as the mayor said, I didn't call him back. His actually text said, if I wanted to talk. Well, I didn't want to talk, because if I would have, I would have called you back at that point. And in the past, you and I have just freely talked. But in your text, you said call your assistant. Why should I have to call your assistant if you and I are talking, and we've always talked to one another? I shouldn't have to go through somebody. You and I have each other's phone number. When I have something to say, when you have something to say, please call me. And I hope I'm open enough just to call you as opposed to going through somebody else in the future. That's what I expect. And as I expect with everybody here who has an assistant, you know, we have a relationship where we talk to one another. So that being said, I will close and say, one, I believe we pay too much for that is my opinion. I believe we paid too much for the property. However you want to look at it, that's what I believe. I believe there are some questions on where it is located, and I believe the legislation, the way it was presented, was misleading, and we should have had an opportunity to vote on it after it was signed, not before it was signed. So I look forward to working with everyone. I think we've talked about this enough. I'm done saying anything else. Everybody believe what they believe, their opinions. We will move on with this. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Councilman Wilmot again.
Thank you.
I don't mean that disrespectfully. I'm sorry.
I appreciate that comment. So, but anyway, I just wanted to make a final comment as well, and of course, my closing comment, and I know Councilman Carroll had already closed, but I just want to say, Councilman Carroll, too, he wanted information. He feels like he wanted more information, and we had this hearing. I think he's entitled to that. Any one of the 7 council persons up here can call for that, and he did that. So I have no problem with that, and I think it's important that it be aired. And Councilman Carroll, thank you for doing what you do. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Wilmot. Madam Clerk?
Item 19 is unfinished business. Are there motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position? We have none.
Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Ms. Whitaker? And please state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was good morning, but now it's good afternoon. My name is Jaronette S. Whitaker. I'm the mother of Armand Jaron Brown, who was executed by the Kenner Police SWAT team on January 23, 2017. I have here his father, who is also represented. My address is 627 Webster Street, Kenner, Louisiana. We are here because we never want to stop fighting for injustices for our son, Armand Jaron Brown. After listening to what you all had to say, we have not overcome a lot of things listening today. And I didn't have that in my speech. We will keep it in the forefront because one day this may help another mentally ill or get proper help for he or she who needs mentally help. Believe me, injustices, excess force, and policy changes are needed for the city of Kenner families. My son, Armand Brown, was executed by a SWAT team on January 23, 2017. Next Wednesday, January 23, 2019, will be 2 years. Our family will be reliving this execution and dealing with pain and suffering of our beloved son, Armand Jaron Brown, and how Kenner Police dealt with a mentally challenged young man. At the last council meeting, I had the opportunity to address Chief Glazer about policy changes. If I heard him correctly, there is no need, he said, because his policies work well. Well, I disagree because I feel more training is needed to help mentally challenged people. I'm not trying to be rude, but my understanding, there is a robot which could have been used to save my son's life other than a high-powered rifle to kill him, only because he was quoting Bible scriptures when you compelled him to leave his home. no hostage, just a young man having a spiritual breakdown. Honestly, when the family believes in the law enforcement, as I did and as my family did, and we believe in moral safety concerning the citizen of Kenner, Louisiana, we feel they are obligated to protect because we depend on the training and the police and the policy which should be implemented for all citizens of Kenner pertaining to the mentally challenged. As for my family, understanding and the belief made of my son's situation, the city of Kenner did not have a policy in place at the time. No crisis center was called to assist. The police, no, I just said here, for the police who was there to give my son help, I want to thank you, because all police are not bad. But for those that were out there that knew better, God bless them also. Citizens of Kenner, those of you that are here this morning or this afternoon, I want to say to all the parents who have children, whether they are normal or have mental problems, always love them, because when they are dead, it will leave a hole in your heart forever. I'm finished, but one question I had for the chief of police: where was the robot, Chief Glazer, that could have saved my son? And all I'm asking that we need, as citizens, as voters, that we need to make a change. We have nowhere for the mentally ill, whether they're black, white, blue, or brown. What I'm fighting for now is a change that one of these days that the city police, they will be able to. It's not funny. It's not funny. I can't bring my son back. I know where he's at. But I can ask that the city and the voters realize that we need a mental facility. They have been taken away when gender was here. And that's all I'm asking for, not for difference of color, race. Yeah, mine's gone, but I know where he at. Because see, John 3:16, that 3:16, Social Security check came in at 3:16. So I know what God has for him. But this purpose is not for him anymore. It's for us, that we have to get help for our children. We look at bipolar, we look at schizophrenia, you look at opioid and drugs. I'm here now as an advocate for all. And that is for us to see that our children need a place, somewhere to go. When they're experiencing mental issues or going through things, and we try our best to do it, and they put them in for 2 days, and
Ms.
they have
Whitaker,
nowhere to go.
Ms. Whitaker.
All I'm asking that,
Ms. Whitaker, please wrap it up. I'm sorry, I've let you go almost 5 minutes. The clock is not working, but I have it on my phone. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Morella?
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 47 years. After much discussion in here on this issue, first of all, let me say I do agree with Councilman Carroll. I think we paid too much for that property as well. But let me say this. In order for the legislative branch and the administrative branch to be successful, we have to have three things among ourselves. We have to have, among yourselves, communication, cooperation, and commitment. And as your employer of every council member up here and this administration and everybody in this administration, I'm going to reiterate what each and every one of you your job duties are on this council and this administration. One, to always represent and serve the best interests of all the people of the city of Kenner. Two, to always I said represent the best interests of all the people of Kenner. Okay. Two is to be good stewards of our tax dollars. And three is to always deliver honest services and good government. Now, I appreciate the comments by all of y'all up there today. Now, I want to say this to Councilman Segura in relation to the airport. You're right what you said. We don't have equal say in what goes on at this airport. And the mayor said it earlier, that we have to deal with the minuses of that airport being in our backyard. So I say this to you, Mayor. You also stated that the mayor of New Orleans has been cooperative. Well, let me tell you how she can be even more cooperative. First of all, we appoint our board member, and we have the final say of confirming this board member, not the city of New Orleans. I don't want nobody to ask for equal say, demand it. We have to deal with the problems with this airport back here. I'm going to say it again. And we need equal say on what goes on with that airport. Now, as far as the ordinance being on the agenda, I think that if the purchase price of that property would have been on that agenda, along with some of the appraisals that we had along with it, maybe a lot of this in here today could have been avoided. Okay? Now, Mr. Rapier, I want to address this to you. The ordinance was on the agenda. I didn't remember seeing any of this information. The only time I saw the appraisals and the purchase price was in the Times-Picayune on the 13th of January. Now, that's about all I have to say.
Mr. Morelli.
Anybody got any comments, any questions?
Mr. Morelli, your time is up.
Okay. I see it now. He showed it to me. It was one.
Signed it, and there it is.
1.5 million, but there was nothing about any other appraisals on here.
We have never, any time, even when we sell property, put the appraisals in the legislation.
Well,
Mr. Morelli, you and Mr. Rapier can discuss.
Okay,
this
we'll continue it next meeting. Be continued. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this, and I'm not going to. Yes.
My name is Reagan Fink. I live at 4321 Arkansas. I also work in Kenner at 1600 Joe Yenny, which is Laketown Village. I'm going to do something a little different here. We have a road that comes between the Social Security building and my building, and Councilwoman McKinney has been working with me so that we could get it repainted, because I have one of my residents who has seen a lot of people go left when they should be going right. And she's upset about it. So she's actually clocked 47 people going left when they should be going right. So Councilwoman McKinney has actually been working on getting it repainted, and I wanted to thank y'all for that. We've been coming to the day meetings, and my residents normally enjoy it. Today, I was only able to bring one resident, but he actually wanted to speak to y'all and invite y'all to come have an event with us. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Joe Rain. He's going to speak over here.
And Ms. Fink, I apologize. That name was on there and the other one was scratched out, so I did not mean to.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Wren. I'm one of the 80-plus residents of what is now Laketown Village. Previously, it was Brookdale. And my purpose in being here is to invite you to a Mardi Gras ball and ribbon cutting that we're going to have on February the 19th at 5 p.m. Everybody is invited. Mayor, council, and everybody within hearing, residents and hearing of my voice. It's been an interesting meeting. My second meeting, and I plan to continue, but American politics at work.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for
we
being
do
here.
appreciate the daytime meetings, because even though sometimes it's just a few of us, it gives my residents an outing. And as you see, since she started coming, she's actually been out there counting people going the wrong way so that she could have something to address here. So it does good for us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pastor Carcaham, I believe, has left the building. Mr. Greg Teft? pass. I think that's scratched out. Ms. Molina?
Saley Molina, 3629 East Louisiana State Drive. I just want to respond to some of the conversations that have been having back and forth. Mr. Segura, you had mentioned to Mr. Carroll, not to be offended. So I ask you the same thing. I don't want you guys to be offended by, myself or anybody else in the audience coming up and questioning or wanting information. We are the people that you serve, is the way that I look at it, and I don't want to feel mistaken by that. And just watching it, it's more transparent than you'd want it to be. Believe it or not, from the audience would see a different viewpoint. And it just, from my viewpoint, I see everybody patting themselves on the back and everybody did a good job and quick to answer when I want to defend this and, we did a good job and we did this. But a lot of times, even the sentiments of Ms. Whitaker are ignored. The questions, we ask a question and you guys have no response or no comment, and I see people just get down, and I think to myself, well, that was a good question. I'd like to ask that question. So maybe I'll ask that question when I get here. So I don't mean to offend anyone, to be honest with you. I have very high respect for all of you. And when I look to you, I look to you to set a standard. I'd also like to respond to the comment made about the hood. Hood is not said a lot of times. I don't know if you were quoting me or not, because I know that I have said the word hood, and I'm saying it here, and it's not said in a negative connotation in any way. It's short for neighborhood. University City is a hood, Woodlake is a neighborhood, and you can say things in different ways without meaning them in a negative way. So I don't see that in a negative way at all. I think that everyone that has brought up District 1, Susan Park, Veterans Heights. I've been a resident of Susan Park, Veterans Heights since 1986. From 1986 since 2007, I didn't move. And in the hood, we say this: we don't move out, we move up. And we did. I started on Salem all the way up to Tifton until finally now I live in University City, in the hood in University City. And so it's just not said in a negative connotation. I don't want, if it's heard from me, I just want to clarify that. And, as far as Facebook goes, a lot of times, Facebook is used as, this is said on Facebook or that is said on Facebook. Facebook is nowadays is a platform for the residents to come to the meetings that can't make the daytime meetings, can't make the nighttime meetings. So they want to be heard. And in the group that I am the administrator for, that's how it got the popularity that it had, because the people didn't feel they had a voice. They, if they came to the city or the administration or the council or the assistants, or they didn't feel heard. And so what they would do, they started coming to the group and just voicing themselves, and they found a support system among the community. Sometimes people just want to hear, I'm sorry for the loss of your son. I'm sorry for, I understand that was a difficult decision. No one is meaning to insinuate any improprieties in anyone's actions. We just want to know. We want it to be transparent. We want a relationship, a communication with you guys. That's it. Any questions, any remarks?
The one thing that I would like to add
Yes,
is, and thank you for your comments. You and I did speak, and as far as Ms. Whitaker, in any situation, I think, and correct me, legal, we can't make comments. I don't know where the chief is. I don't know if he had a previous engagement, but when questions, it would be the same about the fire department or recreation. If Mr. Pitfield's not here, if the fire chief is not here, I think we would really be stepping over our boundaries to comment on matters of other departments, especially those.
Of that nature, absolutely understandable. My point is just a simple, I'm sorry for the loss of your son. Sometimes it just shows a little bit of humanity from you guys, and you don't come off as just career politicians, but servants of the people, which is what we're hoping you are, in all sincerity. Just thank you for listening, and thank you for appreciating, and please don't take offense, because I have high admiration for each and every one of you.
Have a good weekend. Thank you. There was a name, it looks like Glenda Rowell, and it looks like it's erased. That was so. Mr. Richard Brown. And Mr. Brown, so you'll know the clock's not working, I'm keeping this on my phone, so you'll get your 41 seconds.
Excuse me. Thank you. Let me clear my throat. Sorry, Mr. President. Thank you. Richard Brown, 824 Sessions Lane, Kenner. I want to try to clear up 2 or 3 things. It's kind of hard when you folks pontificate for over an hour and then we get 3 minutes. So I'll just pick up on 2 or 3 points. The first is to the matter of the appraisal of the DOTD, which I have here. And at the bottom of page 72, it says clearly, unequivocally, that when this unit value is applied to the 65,072 square feet of the subject site, this analysis indicates an overall site value of $666,988. Now, I think the other figure that has been banted around of, what, 801,000 or so, that's after the DOT appraisers added $135,000 to the appraisal for site preparation because of the condition of that site. And the DOTD was willing to allow that extra to the city. But they valued the site as is at $666,988. That's the figure. It's in the bottom paragraph of page 72. The dollar figure is the last word on page 72 of the DOTD appraisal. One more comment I need to make. The references I made to the fact that at least 2 of us who are officers and citizens for a Better Kenner felt like we had been misled about PIAL insisting on where the fire station goes. Those were made in private phone conversations, and neither Jack Zewee nor anyone else was a party to those conversations, except the person we were talking to and whoever that person might have had listening in. The third point I want to make is that, somewhat contrary to what I've heard here today, at least 2 council members have told me personally, face-to-face, that they misunderstood that vote that was made on November 19th about buying the property. Gregory Carroll is one of them. He told me he was under the impression that that first vote was basically to authorize further negotiations. The other person is Councilman Segur, who in a meeting on December 10th at Joe's Cafe from 9:30 a.m. until about 11:30, we met for 2 hours with the Board of Directors of Citizens for a Better Kenner. The question of the fire station came up. At that point, we made the point that we wondered why it couldn't stay south of the interstate at the police complex. We had a very pleasant conversation, had a discussion about not knowing what effect it would have on insurance rates. But Mr. Segur, you made the comment to us very clearly. We all 3 remember it, all 3 officers, that...
Please wrap it up, Mr. Brown. Please wrap it up.
Okay. When I said, or one of us said, well, hasn't the city already authorized buying the property? Your response was, well, no, that thing we voted on the other day was just to authorize further negotiations. 2 days later, on December 12th, I had a conversation with Ed Rapier, and I mentioned that, and Ed Rapier said, oh, no, said that document that, he said, I drafted that ordinance. It clearly said it approves the purchase, and it does. I agree. That ordinance that was approved on November 16th, unequivocally, if you read the ordinance, does approve the purchase, but the actual contract for the sale of the real estate, the actual purchase agreement states that...
Mr. Brown, I'm not trying to be rude. That's over 4 minutes.
Okay. This states that after approval of this purchase agreement by the Kenner City Council, it mentions approval twice. It mentions approval once in a general term, then...
Mr. Brown, I think this has been talked to nauseam, pardon that, and I would ask you to speak with the legal department after, and I believe...
It has been talked about ad nauseum. Other people keep mentioning it. I wanted to respond to it.
Yes, sir.
The purchase agreement calls for the approval of this purchase agreement That's what's never been done. There may be a dispute as to whether that's necessary, but that's what it calls for.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Thank you for your comments. Ms. Stacy Alessandro.
Hello again. Stacy Alessandro, 3309 Chateau Boulevard in Kenner. So I'm leaving this meeting very disappointed. I know that some relationships have been formed that weren't there for a long time with myself, some civic leaders, and I feel like all of that goodwill has been undone today. I know I've burned some bridges for my comments today, and I'll stand here and I will defend everything that I have said today. I still stand by everything I said. I guess the question now is, how many bridges have y'all burned with me? And I guess we'll find out. But damage has been done to the reputation of this whole process. I'm not going to call out any names, and I'm not going to look at anybody specifically, but I will say, well, I will reiterate what since Mr. Brown already said about Mr. Segura. I was in that meeting. I'm the secretary. I took notes, and you saw me taking notes, and that is what you said. I know for a fact that at least 2 people on this council have told me they did not realize what they were voting on. I know for a fact that at a minimum 2 people had not seen the appraisals because they asked me for them after the vote. I have personally requested the appraisals after the vote from somebody twice in person with other people around and was told, I'll get them to you. They didn't have them at that point. So, you know, it is what it is. Everybody here knows their part. They know what they knew. They know what they didn't know. I'm very upset, I want to reiterate, at that civic meeting that we were told we would get our questions answered, that we were not told in that 3-hour meeting once when we were discussing everything that the sale had already occurred prior to the date that was on the purchase agreement. I'm very upset about that. We're so misled. And finally, the last point that Mr. Brown was making, I have the purchase agreement here, the one that was signed the day before the sale, which I cannot believe that anybody would say that that's a standard business practice in a deal of this magnitude. You don't have any agreement at all in writing to purchase this until the day before. What's to stop the seller from selling it to somebody else, getting a higher offer? And then your deal would have fallen apart. If time was of the essence, why did we not have anything in writing solidifying this deal? And I don't know if anybody can read an appraisal because it clearly said $666,988 was the value, not $801,000. The last thing I want to read is this is the purchase agreement itself. And it says, and this is what I would like an answer to. It says, the subject property shall be sold and purchased at a closing to be held on or about January 10th, 2019 at a time mutually acceptable to seller and buyer after approval of this purchase agreement, which is in capital, let's start off in capital letters. This purchase agreement by the Kenner City Council. Nobody even saw this to vote on it. It didn't even exist until the day before the property was closed on. How do you answer that? How did you vote on it if you didn't even see it? And like I said, I know I've burned bridges. I'll live with that, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Alessandro. Seeing no other persons wishing to, sorry. Mr. Roussel? Yep. Mr. Roussel.
I just want to respond to Mr. Brown's comments concerning the purchase agreement and to reiterate again, as I told him in the past, he is incorrect and wrong on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Rapier. Councilman Segura? Pardon me. Councilman Segura. Councilman Segura.
Thank you. Stacy? Wait, just don't leave yet. I just want to answer you and Richard. In our conversation, which was multifaceted, the discussion of the ongoing negotiations, one, the sale price, I knew. The negotiation that I'm referring to was the agreement that we also were agreeing to that said The airport is still negotiating with the city for the purpose of how much they're going to totally pay. I know what I knew. You can shake, but Richard, I got that. But that's y'all's privilege. I got it. But my privilege is to say what I knew I was talking about. Thank you.
Seeing no other members wishing to address the council, I would entertain a motion to
To close
adjourn.
You closing or adjourning?
Adjourn.